Chapter 543. This stupid brat is creating trouble for him. The three Lord-level sea beasts shuddered instantly when they heard the cold and mocking voice. They raised their heads and stared at the cruel human above them. This was the human that caught them and wanted to eat them. He was a devil. The windstorm giant ape frowned when it saw Wang Ting waking up the three Lord-level sea beasts but not letting them go. His voice thundered over once again. "Human, are you trying to violate the agreement? Release them." Its tone was stronger this time, carrying a huge pressure in it. Old Han and the others looked at Wang Ting. What is Wang Ting trying to do? Governor Jiang frowned. Is this brat causing trouble again? Dan Taixian raised her eyebrows as she murmured in her heart. She didn't say this aloud, though. The three Lord-level sea beasts felt more confident after hearing the windstorm giant ape's words. They shouted, "Human, release us. Release us. If not, our king will raid your city," the giant lobster threatened. Noisy. Wang Ting's gaze turned cold. He released his emerald-glazed flame again. Boom. The force net was engulfed by the green flames. They burnt the three Lord-level sea beasts, causing them to scream in pain. Ah! Roar. The three Lord-level sea beasts struggled frantically. They wanted to break through the force net and get rid of the burning green flames. However, they knew how tough and tensile the force net was. No matter how much they struggled, it was all in vain. The gaze of the windstorm giant ape turned chilly. "You're seeking death. You want them, right?" Wang Teng replied calmly, "Since you want them, I'll give them back to you." The windstorm giant ape was stunned. It opened its mouth instantly. "Release that net." Wang Teng nodded. He looked straight at the windstorm giant ape and lifted the net gradually. The three Lord-level sea beasts got closer and closer to him. By now, the three Lord-level sea beasts had stopped screaming. Their gazes turned malicious, and killing intent burned furiously in their hearts. As a Lord-level sea beast, they had never suffered such a treatment before. The human in front of them must die. The moment they broke free from the net, this human would die. Very soon, Wang Teng pulled the three sea beasts near his feet. He looked down on them and suddenly smiled, saying in a light-hearted tone, "Come, let me free y'all." The three Lord-level sea beasts were elated. Freedom was within their reach. They would be able to kill this human in front of them very soon and take revenge for the humiliation he had caused them. Wang Ting stretched out his hand towards the deep-sea giant python. Everyone stared at him. For some reason, they started to get nervous. Dan Taixian and the others were waiting for the sea beasts to retaliate. After all, no one dared to bet on the credibility of the sea beasts. Right then, a sudden change occurred. A sharp glow shot out of Wang Teng's sleeve without any warning and flew into the deep-sea giant python's eyes. Roar. There was no time for the happiness in the deep-sea giant python's eyes to subside. Its pupils constricted into a line, but it was too late. Excruciating pain racked its body, and it hissed in agony. Then, its voice was abruptly cut off. The deep-sea giant python wriggled violently before it stiffened. It was dead. It got killed by Wang Ting. "You! How dare you!" The giant lobster and the giant octopus widened their eyes in disbelief as they stared at the human in front of them. This human dared to kill them right under the windstorm giant ape's nose. He must be crazy. "It's your turn." Wang Ting suddenly turned his head and smiled at them. The moment he finished speaking, the sharp glow came out of the deep-sea giant python's other eye and went straight for the giant octopus eye. No. The giant octopus gave a furious roar, but it was futile. Splurt. The ray of light pierced into its eye, and everything ended. At the same time, Wang Ting arrived in front of the large lobster. He slapped the lobster while it was staring at him in bewilderment. Boom. The slap was printed straight on its head. A frightening force surged out. The giant lobster trembled. Its body turned stiff, and it died on the spot. In an instant, the other two Lord-level sea beasts had died in Wang Ting's hands after the deep-sea giant python was killed. It sounded like it took a long time, but everything happened within 3 breaths. The general stage martial warriors behind were stunned. F***K, little brother Wang is crazy. Wang Depao stared at him with wide eyes. He couldn't help but curse. Everyone behind them was flabbergasted. They almost bit their tongues because of the scare they had received from Wang Ting's sudden move. Brutal. Raw. You are tempting fate. The windstorm giant ape regained its senses. It knew that it had been fooled and flared up in anger. Although fresh seafood is good, frozen ones are not bad either, Wang Ting muttered to himself. However, his voice was quite loud. Everyone almost fainted when they heard this. Why are you thinking about food at a time like this? Can't you be a little more reliable, you bastard? Also, are you doing this to eat or what? He had knocked on the den of the lion when he killed the 3 Lord-level sea beasts. Huge trouble was waiting for them now. Who could pacify the anger of the windstorm giant ape? His words had triggered the windstorm giant ape. It stepped on the huge waves and charged towards him with lightning bolts and storms swirling around him. Wang Ting picked up the attribute bubbles left by the 3 Lord-level sea beasts. He didn't look at them carefully. Instead, he turned back and ran away while screaming, "Old Han, help! Everyone! Old Han!" Everyone thought that Wang Ting had some ultimate move that could defeat the windstorm giant ape. If not, why would he have the courage to kill the 3 Lord-level sea beasts? But in the end, he pleaded for Old Han's help. Old Han's face was black. He almost vomited blood because of his frustration. This stupid brat was creating trouble for him. Wang Ting's speed was outstanding. With a swoosh, he was already behind Old Han, saying hurriedly, "Old Han, I've followed your instructions and killed the 3 Lord-level sea beasts. Now, it's your turn. When did I ask you to kill the 3 Lord-level sea beasts?" Old Han was stunned, the veins on his forehead popping out. "Weren't you winking at me just now?" Wang Ting said, "I completely understood what you meant. These sea beasts aren't reliable. Hence, it's better to kill the 3 Lord-level sea beasts instead of releasing them. You make so much sense." Old Han was speechless. "I've already killed them, so there's no point talking about this now. You should fight with it. With your ability, you shouldn't cower." Wang Ting noticed that Old Han's expression seemed strange, so he hurriedly gifted him with compliments. Old Han took a deep breath. "Get out of my way." Sigh. Wang Ting ran to the back obediently. Old Han, Dan Taixian and the others had strange expressions on their faces. They looked at Wang Ting as if he were a jinx. "Where's your brain? How can you be so stupid?" Yi Jisin was speechless. "Principal, I respect you, but you're framing me. It makes me unhappy." Wang Ting rolled his eyes and continued, "I'm doing it for everyone. If the sea beasts were reliable, the war wouldn't have happened today. Why aren't we killing the 3 Lord-level sea beasts? Are we waiting for them to invade us again?" Yi Jisin, Dan Taixian, and the others had to admit that Wang Ting made sense, but somehow, they still found it strange. Wang Depao heaved a sigh of relief, feeling that his seafood feast was saved. Admiration swarmed into his heart. His little brother Wang was a vicious man. "In that case, tell us what we should do now." "Old Han is injured. He has been suppressing it all these years, so he might not be able to stop the windstorm giant ape." Dan Taixian took a deep breath and said seriously, "He's injured." Wang Ting's expression changed. He had never imagined such a turn of events. At first, he thought that with Old Han's ability, he would be able to hold back the windstorm giant ape. The other martial warriors would block the remaining sea beasts, and both sides would be on par in terms of strength. They would have some chances of winning. But after knowing that Old Han was injured, their strength wouldn't be equal. "Why didn't you say that earlier?" Wang Ting said helplessly. "I wanted to fool the windstorm giant ape, but I didn't expect you to be so bold. You killed the 3 Lord-level sea beasts instantly." Dan Taixian didn't know what to do either. She knew that she couldn't blame windstorm giant ape, but she still felt anger boiling in her heart. Boom. While they were speaking, Old Han and the windstorm giant ape had already collided. A frightening explosion occurred. Old Han seemed to have turned into a sharp silver-white blade. His entire body had merged with his blade conscious. He was the blade, and the blade was him. With his body engulfed in an indomitable blade aura, he charged towards the windstorm giant ape with unrivaled energy. Roar. The windstorm giant ape bellowed furiously. A gigantic long staff made from rock appeared in its hand. There was lightning and wind force entangled on it. It crashed into the blade glow loudly. Wang Ting's expression turned grim. He scanned his attributes panel and muttered to himself, "It looks like I can only use that move." Just now, he had picked up another round of attribute bubbles, so his blank attribute number had increased once again, reaching 15,800 points. Wang Teng added the blank attributes to his space tornado without any hesitation. This skill was the only one that could turn the tides now. After adding 15,800 points of blank attributes, the proficiency of his space tornado increased exponentially. It crossed the foundation level, the small achievement level, and the big achievement level, stopping at the perfected stage. The requirement of each stage for the space tornado was exponential. Hence, more and more blank attributes were needed to reach each stage. The foundation stage required 100 points, the small achievement stage needed 1,000 points, the big achievement stage needed 5,000 points, and the perfected stage needed 10,000 points. Space Tornado, 9776 10,000, perfected. His space tornado skill had almost reached the peak of the perfected stage. Wang Teng's understanding of the space tornado was almost fully completed. He felt that it wouldn't be difficult for him to execute it now. He could even combine it with his space talent. Some unexpected chemistry might happen. A sharp glint appeared in Wang Teng's eyes when he remembered the space tornado he saw in the dimensional rift. His gaze turned deep. His black pupils were like an endless space with tornadoes spinning in them. He lifted his arms, and the space in front of him suddenly became distorted. Chapter 544 Imminent Storm. The space suddenly shook, and traces of the strange fluctuations spread to the surroundings. Dan Taixian, Yi Jisin, and the other general stage martial warriors immediately noticed the abnormality. Their expressions suddenly changed. Why are there space fluctuations? Everyone was shocked. They were confused and anxious. Were the dark apparitions invading now? There was a bad feeling in everyone's hearts. After all, they had only seen space fluctuations of a similar scale when the dimensional rifts appeared. And for dimensional rifts to appear on Earth, it would only mean the invasion of the dark apparitions. If that was the case, it would be like adding fuel to the fire. The battle with the sea beasts wasn't over, yet the dark apparitions were already invading them. Were they taking turns? The general stage martial warriors' faces turned ugly, and their heads were clouded with negative thoughts, showing a look of giving up. Cough, cough. An awkward cough broke the silence. Don't think too much. I did that. The person who spoke was Wang Ting. When he saw the expressions on their faces, he knew what was on their minds. Everyone. Several of them were confused as they looked at Wang Ting. Suddenly, they realized that the spatial fluctuations were centered around Wang Ting, so they just made a wrong judgment. You possess space talent too? Governor Jiang asked in surprise. Dan Taixuan's eyes flashed as she suddenly remembered that Wang Ting seemed to have used spatial techniques to kill the Eight-Arms Devil General during the Star Maple City battle. If that was so, it wouldn't be strange. Faced with Governor Jiang's question, Wang Ting declined to comment. It's better for you to step back a little bit. The next one might be more difficult to control. What are you planning to do? Dan Taixuan's expression changed slightly. Nothing much. I just want to test my newly developed move, Wang Teng replied calmly. He shamelessly proceeded to claim the space tornado as his own achievement. Dan Taixian and the rest naturally didn't when they heard Wang Teng's words. They still sensed something amiss, especially when they saw his calm face. This brat might be causing some trouble. No, might was not the appropriate word here. This brat was causing trouble. Are you sure? Dan Taixian frowned and asked. Even if Wang Ting had the space talent, the difference between him and the windstorm giant ape was massive. Even if he managed to execute it, he might still not be a match. 50-50, Wang Ting said without changing his expression. Everyone. What do you mean by 50-50? They all knew that was not a serious answer. They were already in such a dire situation, he should stop fooling around. Wang Teng didn't speak, and his expression became solemn. With him at the center, the space fluctuations became more and more intense, and the ripples started forming waves that were visible to the naked eye as they spread outwards. Dan Taixian and the rest were too close and could feel them firsthand. The space fluctuations made them feel unstable, and a strong sense of danger surfaced in their hearts. Space was not something that a normal martial warrior could lay a finger on. It was extremely rare even for a general stage martial warrior to grasp the existence of space. As the spatial fluctuations intensified, the surroundings would suddenly crack. Even a general stage warrior would be torn apart by the dimensional rifts. Even if they managed to escape death, they would not be spared from serious injuries. They exchanged glances with one another before retreating. It was laughable that as a general stage martial warrior, they couldn't offer much help and could only stand back. The younger generations would exceed the older generation, leaving no path for them. Boom! The windstorm giant ape and old Han clashed, and the shockwave swept the surroundings. Impact! The seawater started churning, forming a huge whirlpool. The flow of water was turbulent, but the windstorm giant ape's giant body didn't budge at all. The windstorm giant ape swung the long rod in its hand, smashing it towards old Han. The storm and the lightning came together, painting a devastating scene. There was already a trace of blood on the corner of old Han's mouth. His old injury had relapsed, and the fierce battle made it impossible for him to suppress it any longer. However, he held on, and sword glows erupted from his body, soaring in the sky. The next moment, though, the sword glows shot back. Although the sword conscious returned and converged into his body, it had become even sharper and terrifying than before. Old Han's back suddenly straightened. It was like he had transformed into a peerless sword. Slash! A roar escaped his mouth, resounding through the heavens. In an instant, his body vanished. He turned into a sword glow and rose into the sky, slashing towards the windstorm giant ape. Collided, everything seemed to have fallen into silence. The waves stopped, while the whirlpool came to an end. The sea beasts and humans in the distance seemed to freeze at that moment. Clang! A metallic trill was the only sound in this world. It shook the skies and seas endlessly. Boom! Soon after, a terrifying roar finally broke out. The shockwaves from the clash blasted the seawater into the sky, and the terrifying energy swept across the surroundings. The faces of Dan Taixian and the rest changed as they stepped back. Only Wang Ting stood in front. The terrifying shock wave bombarded his body, and the fierce winds made his clothes flap loudly. His long black hair danced wildly in the air. Wang Teng's body was surging with force, blocking the shockwave. In front of him, the spatial fluctuations had reached the peak, releasing bursts of crackling sounds. At a certain moment, the space around Wang Ting suddenly cracked and formed deep, dark rifts. Inside them was a bottomless pit of the void. A gust of wind from the void gushed out from the crack and surrounded Wang Ting as if it was manipulated by a certain force. It was gentle like a breeze in the beginning, but it gradually became faster, turning into a violent tornado. It spun rapidly, tearing apart the surrounding space, forming a terrifying piece of the void. It was the birth of a tornado. Wang Teng's body finally vanished in the swirling tornado. Dan Taixian and the rest immediately felt a terrifying pull. Not only were they floating towards it, but even their blood and force were also moving as if they were about to break out of their bodies. Everyone was startled as they retreated even further. They had already retreated previously, but it was clearly not enough. Retreat! At the same time, they shouted at the human soldiers behind them. There were still many soldiers on top of the mountains. They had also felt the strong pull. The surrounding trees were all tilted over, and countless gravel was rolling in that direction. Chapter 545 Dazzling. So frightening. The martial warriors beside him felt the frightening suction force and a strong sense of danger. What's Wang Ting doing? Everyone in the country was watching this scene in front of the screens. The terrifying emptiness gradually turned into a frightening tornado, rendering everyone speechless and shocked. Although many people were curious, the martial warriors beside them didn't know anything either. They had never seen such a frightening battle technique. Especially the emptiness. It seemed to be birthed from dimensional rift. What kind of battle technique could move space? Numerous martial warriors stared at the tornado in bewilderment. Capital Shia. The leader of martial arts suddenly took a step forward as if this was the only way to see the situation on the screen clearly. His gaze turned sharp and bright, and he let out a huge sigh after some time. This is space skill. The commander of the military and the principal of the first university had noticed it too. They were astounded. Even they couldn't maintain their composure at this moment. Wang Ting has grasped a space battle technique, the commander of the military said in disbelief. How did he do it? The Minister of Education's eyes were shimmering. From what I know, you need to possess the space talent if you want to execute a space battle technique, the leader of martial arts said slowly. There was no need to say things clearly. Everyone understood. This was his talent. They could only feel jealous. Above the Donghai Sea, while everyone was in a daze, a tornado with Wang Ting in the center was spinning at a frightening speed. The shrill sound of the wind spooked the listeners. At the same time, an appalling suction swept everywhere. The seawater was swept up into the sky. On land, the tree and broken rocks on the mountain were blown up and sucked into the tornado. Everyone was staggered. They stopped hesitating and dashed down the mountain. Dan Taixian and the others flew past the mountains with stern expressions on their faces. They watched the scene from a distance. Fortunately, the huge mountains were blocking them. Without it, the human martial warriors might have to retreat much further so that they wouldn't get implicated by the tornado. Boom! The battle between Old Han and the windstorm giant ape finally stopped. The seawater fell back into the sea, revealing the situation behind it. A figure flew out abruptly. Splurt! Old Han vomited a mouthful of blood. His old body slammed down from the sky like a broken gunny sack. Killing intent was burning in the eyes of the windstorm giant ape. It wanted to throw its long rod out once again. Old Han's body suddenly started flying backward at a fast speed as if there was an invisible force pulling him. Dan Taixian and the others immediately dashed out and caught Old Han. Cough. Old Han's face was pale. He coughed out blood again. Old Han, are you all right? Dan Taixian asked worriedly. Old Han's frail hands were trembling slightly. But he still waved them and said, "Put me down." "Your injury," Governor Jiang couldn't help but ask. "I won't die anytime soon." Old Han's face had gotten whiter, but no one could stop his stubbornness. They put him down. He wobbled in the air like a kite without its string, looking like a strong gust of wind would take him away. Everyone was worried for him. Old Han looked in front. Astonishment flashed past his eyes as he asked, "Did Wang Teng make that?" "Yes," Dan Taixian nodded and replied. "Good riddance. No wonder he dared to kill the 3 Lord-level sea beasts in front of the windstorm giant ape." Old Han smiled. As they were talking, the windstorm giant ape also looked at the space tornado in front and turned vigilant. He could sense a strong sense of threat from it. At this moment, the space tornado started spinning furiously and gradually moved forward. An even more powerful suction force came out from within the tornado as it swept towards the sea beasts. The sea beasts screamed in fear. They scurried around, but under the strong suction force, their bodies soared into the sky uncontrollably and flew towards the space tornado. Roar! Amidst the agonizing cries, multiple sea beasts merged into the space tornado. Fut, fut, fut. Before they could scream, they were shredded into pieces by the tornado. Blood scattered down like rain. The remaining sea beasts ran away frantically. They swam towards the distance and the bottom of the sea, wanting to evade the powerful space tornado. However, the space tornado continued moving forward firmly. The sea beasts near it couldn't escape their fate of death. Roar! The windstorm giant ape bellowed when it saw the scene. "Human, stop." A cold snort answered him. Wang Teng's voice came from within the space tornado. "It's too late. Do you think that humans are made of mud? Any invaders must pay the price. I will not let any of you return." His voice grew louder and louder. Toward the end, it spread over the sea and resounded everywhere. The humans behind the mountains felt a rush of adrenaline in their bodies. They looked in front. Even though they couldn't see his figure, excitement still rose in their eyes. Well said. We must let the sea beasts know that we, humans, aren't easy to bully. Roar. The windstorm giant ape howled. Watching the sea beasts getting sucked into the space tornado one by one and finally being shredded into pieces, its eyes turned bloodshot. You should die, it screamed. The storm and lightning around it increased exponentially and formed an equally frightening lightning windstorm. It engulfed its body. Why? At this moment, the windstorm giant ape seemed to have turned into a lightning windstorm. It was the king of storms. It was the ruler of lightning. Amidst the frightening aura, it roared to the sky and knocked forcefully into the space tornado. Boom! The space tornado and the lightning windstorm collided above the sea. The scene was extremely frightening. It was like the dawn of a calamity. Humans couldn't stop it. The seawater was churning while the sky was pitch black with black clouds covering the sun. This area seemed exceptionally gloomy and depressing. The two tornadoes spun furiously, corroding and destroying each other. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions in the sky never ceased. It was like the dawn of the apocalypse. The humans behind were all shocked and flabbergasted. There was no way to describe their emotions. Suddenly, a huge wave splashed into the sky, blocking everyone's view. They could only hear continuous explosions. The windstorm giant ape won in terms of ability, while Wang Teng won in terms of the frightening level of the space tornado. Both sides were at a standstill. They were archenemies, so no one was willing to admit defeat. They would either win or die trying. Roar. Die. The ape and the human bellowed furiously, pressing their attacks down on their opponent. Boom. A dreadful explosion suddenly erupted from the point of collision between the two tornadoes. The world turned dead silent. Who won? The people at the back stared in front absent-mindedly. They were extremely nervous. Their hearts had risen to their throats as they waited for the result. The sea waves subsided. Two figures faintly appeared in everyone's vision. One of them was the huge figure of the windstorm giant ape. The other appeared extremely small beside it. Yet his back was straight, and he stood erect in the air. He wasn't far from the windstorm giant ape. There was a huge commotion in the ranks of the humans. The windstorm giant ape was drenched in blood, its body marred with numerous wounds. It looked tragic and miserable. It was panting heavily as it stared intently at Wang Ting, wishing to skin him alive. Wang Ting had multiple wounds on his body too. Fresh blood stained his clothes and dripped down his body. However, there were no emotions on his face. His gaze was calm and composed as he stared at the giant ape. The human martial warriors behind, the normal people in the underground shelter, as well as all the audience in front of the screens in the country. Everyone was focused on them with bated breaths. The fate of Donghai lay in Wang Ting's hands. Retreat. At this moment, a resolute voice came from Wang Ting's mouth. Silence. Dead silence. The windstorm giant ape glared at Wang Ting. After some time, it finally opened its mouth. Human, tell me your name. Its voice remained loud and dignified. However, there was a hint of tiredness and weakness hidden in it. Wang Teng, he replied after a moment of silence. I'll remember you. The windstorm giant ape gave Wang Teng a deep look. Then, it turned around and walked towards the depth of the sea. Its huge body submerged into the seawater step by step before it finally disappeared. The remaining sea beasts followed closely behind and disappeared entirely from the surface of the sea. We won. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they regained their senses. A loud cheer suddenly erupted. Ha ha ha, we won. We really won. Wang Teng, Wang Ting, Wang Teng. Someone took the lead and shouted Wang Teng's name. His name echoed above the Donghai ruins for a long time. The dark clouds were swept away, and a ray of sunlight scattered down, lighting up the young figure in front. He was dazzling. Chapter 546. It was worth the hard fight. As the last sea beast disappeared into the deep sea, the water resumed its calmness. The cheers of the humans resounded in the sky above the Donghai ruins. Wang Ting stood erected on the surface of the sea. Under the golden sunlight, his slender body seemed exceptionally tall and lofty at this moment. It was even a little holy. Respect appeared in everyone's eyes. It came from their hearts. The brutal sea beast riot had been quashed with Wang Ting's help. Without him, many Donghai martial warriors, as well as the ordinary people, wouldn't be able to survive the sea beast slaughtering. He had helped the human martial warriors kill a large number of sea beasts. He also carried 2 mountains and built an almost indestructible defense on their coastline, blocking the majority of the sea beasts outside. He fought to let the human martial warriors have a higher chance of survival. It was also him who defeated the frightening windstorm giant ape and forced it to retreat, protecting the homes of the Donghai citizens. Who else had the ability to do this? In the underground shelter, the Wang family felt extremely proud when they heard the cheers around them and the people calling out Wang Ting's name. They looked at the young figure on the screen. There was only astonishment in their mind. It's our family's luck to have such a child. Grandpa Wang clenched his cane tightly as he stuttered. Wang Ting's uncles and aunts felt the same way. How fortunate they were to have such a formidable presence in their family. Many families were unable to groom a martial warrior even after pumping in huge amounts of resources. On the other hand, the Wang family didn't do anything, yet Wang Ting had risen to such an astonishing level. It was like a pie dropping from the sky. Whenever the other families mentioned them, their eyes turned red in jealousy. At the same time, the other citizens of the country finally heaved a sigh of relief. Donghai was saved. This was the best result. Although the city itself was in ruins, the people had survived. They could rebuild the city as long as the will was there. Then, everyone's gaze landed on Wang Ting unconsciously. They couldn't hide the amazement on their faces. This young man was so outstanding. Through this sea beast's riot, he allowed everyone to see what an unsurpassed talent in his generation meant. Indeed, to everyone, Wang Ting was worth such a high appraisal. He was the first in his generation. He had surpassed all the talents of his generation. Although no one specially mentioned this glory, they still placed this honor in their hearts in unplanned unison. Capital Shia, Imperial Palace. The leader of martial arts sternly gave an order. Immediately dispatch medical staff and alchemists to Donghai. We must save every single life we can. Prepare all the resources needed. We'll do our best to help rebuild Donghai. All the departments must cooperate. If anyone slacks or makes a profit out of this, they will be punished with due severity. Also, send some rune masters to Donghai and build the strongest defense on the coastline of Donghai to prevent another invasion of sea beasts. After he finished speaking, he left instantly. When he reached the door, he stopped and said, "Order the entire nation to keep a close watch of our surroundings, especially the grasslands, the forests, the mountain ranges, and the seas. I don't want to see another similar event happening." Then, he disappeared from everyone's vision. Yes, the Minister of Education and the various leaders replied hurriedly. The impact of this sea beast riot was huge. It had gained great attention from the higher authorities. Donghai had already suffered heavy losses. Their country couldn't afford another turmoil like this. The orders were sent out from the Imperial Palace and spread to all corners of the country. The entire nation went on full alert, and the atmosphere turned tense. Donghai. Wang Ting stood on the surface of the sea until all the sea beasts had disappeared. Next, he heaved a sigh of relief. A wave of overwhelming exhaustion was spreading throughout his body. His body and mind had reached their limits. He had never felt so empty and helpless. It was as if his body didn't belong to him. He wasn't standing there because he wanted to put on a show. It was because he couldn't move a muscle. His whole body would scream in protest if he made even a small movement. All he could do was use the last morsel of force to maintain his body floating in midair. Fortunately, the windstorm giant ape didn't notice that he was at his wit's end. Or rather, it didn't matter if it discovered anything. It was faring not any better. Wang Ting was confident in the power of his space tornado. The windstorm giant ape wasn't stupid. It knew that if it continued fighting, it wouldn't gain any benefits. Because of Wang Ting's appearance, most of the general stage human martial warriors had kept their lives. This was a huge threat to the sea beasts. They had no other chances of winning. At this moment, Dan Taixian and the others finally noticed Wang Ting's abnormality. They flew over quickly. Are you all right? Dan Taixian asked worriedly. Hold me. I can't move. Wang Ting opened his mouth and said in a hoarse tone. Dan Taixuan's expression changed slightly as she hurriedly held onto him. Everyone returned to the back. Others crowded around them, including Peng Yuanshan and Tong Hu from Huanghai Military Academy. There were also Qin Hanxian, Fu Tiandao, and some other people close to Wang Ting. Of course, there were some unfamiliar faces too. They looked tired and were covered with blood, but at this moment, they were all worried. They started talking at once. How are you? Are you all right? Is your injury serious? Wang Ting felt a little weird that a bunch of old men was surrounding him and showing him concern, but he was touched. At the same time, he felt fortunate that everyone had lived. It was worth the hard fight. Make way, are you all trying to block the path? Dan Taixian frowned and shouted as she carried Wang Ting. The crowd was stunned before they hurriedly cleared a path. Dan Taixian snorted, carrying Wang Ting to an empty patch not far away. Donghai had already turned into ruins. Also, Wang Ting had to form the rock giant, so he forcefully pulled out all the rocks below the ground. Hence, it was empty everywhere. They could only find a leveled ground to let Wang Ting rest. Dan Taixian placed Wang Ting down and took out some healing pills for him to consume. Wang Ting didn't waste any time. After swallowing the pills, he closed his eyes and started recuperating. Despite everything, he didn't forget to leave a string of spiritual power to pick up the remaining attribute bubbles around him. No matter how serious his injury was, he must not waste his attribute bubbles. Very soon, all the attribute bubbles were picked up by Wang Ting. He finally recalled his spiritual power and focused on recuperating. After some time, Wang Ting opened his eyes and heaved a long sigh. The sky was getting dark. It was evening now. The night was dawning soon. Suddenly, Wang Ting noticed a group of people beside him. He was stunned. Dad, Mom, Grandpa. Why are you here? The people in front of him were his family members. When they came out from the underground shelter, they heard that Wang Ting was injured, so they stood around him and never left. Son, you're finally awake. Li Xiaomei heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, she cried in happiness. Chapter 547. Just worried of wild cats and dogs. As his mother, Li Xiaomei was the most anxious for Wang Ting. Thus, when she saw him waking up, there was no need to explain her happiness. She hugged Wang Ting tightly as if afraid that he would suddenly disappear. Mom, I'm fine. I'm good. Wang Ting was touched. He patted Li Xiaomei's back and consoled her. Li Xiaomei wiped her tears and said, Don't fight so hard next time. How am I supposed to live if something happens to you? All right, I'll listen to you. I'll escape far away next time. Wang Ting agreed without thinking. I know you're just comforting me. Li Xiaomei rolled her eyes angrily. He had agreed so quickly that it must be fake. All right, our son is doing this for everyone in Donghai. He's a hero. Wang Shengguo's eyes were red, but he didn't cry. He patted Li Xiaomei's face as he spoke in a proud tone. To hell with being a hero. I just want my son. I don't want a hero. Li Xiaomei glared at Wang Shengguo and scolded him. Speechless, Wang Shengguo felt embarrassed. The people around them didn't know what to say. Some martial warriors who passed by opened their mouths and wanted to refute. However, when they remembered that she was Wang Ting's mother, they gave up. To a mother, nothing was more important than her son. Grandpa Wang coughed awkwardly and said, Xiaomei, it's good that he's fine. Let's stop talking about this. Since Grandpa Wang had spoken, it wasn't appropriate for Li Xiaomei to continue on this topic. Moreover, she knew the old saying, with greater strength came greater responsibility. If a powerful warrior like Wang Ting didn't step up to the challenge, no other humans might be able to step out and fight with the sea beasts. She sighed in her heart. Then, she spoke to Wang Ting in a gentle tone, Are you hungry? Let me make some food for you. When she said this, everyone's stomach started growling. They hadn't eaten for a whole day. When they came out from the underground shelter, they received some dried goods, but they didn't have any appetite. They just drank some water and didn't eat anything. Now, after seeing that Wang Ting was fine, Their worry was gone, and naturally, they felt hungry. Our house is gone, so there's nowhere we can cook. We can only make do with some dried rations. Wang Teng's aunt, Zhao Huili, said dejectedly. Li Xiumei finally reacted, frowning uncontrollably. Her son was injured, so he should have some nourishment. But everyone was homeless, so she couldn't make food without the ingredients. Wang Teng is awake. At this moment, a bunch of people came from afar. They were Dan Taixian, Peng Yuanshan, Fu Tiandao, and many others. At the same time, there was a group of medical workers. When they saw Wang Teng, their gazes turned intense and were filled with respect. A beautiful female doctor around 30 years old said, "Mr. Wang Teng, nice to meet you. I'm your personal doctor sent by the higher authorities. I'll be in charge of your body condition for the next few days." Wang Ting was a little stunned by the female doctor's beauty. Normally, he didn't mind creating some secret stories between a patient and the doctor. However, he couldn't act on his fantasies because his parents were around. There's no need for that. "I'm fine," Wang Ting said. He didn't mean it at all. "No way, your body is extremely important. We must be careful with it. We'll be monitoring all the indexes of your health now. Please cooperate with us," the female doctor said. "Son, listen to the doctor and accept the checkup." Li Xiumei immediately agreed. Wang Ting felt helpless. Closing his eyes, he nodded. "Okay, I will hand my body to you now." The female doctor waved her hand, and the staff around her immediately started erecting a simple tent. Then, they started a body inspection for Wang Teng. The checkup was quite simple, just a body inspection. After some time, the procedure ended, and the female doctor walked out of the tent. Li Xiumei and the others crowded around her and asked, "Doctor, how's my son?" The female doctor was a little stunned. She regained her senses when she heard the question and replied, "Oh, Mr. Wang Ting's body has almost recovered completely. He's fine. This is astonishing. It's my first time seeing a body with such amazing healing power." As she spoke, she saw Wang Teng coming out. Her eyes lit up, and she asked shyly, "If possible, can you give me some blood so that I can research it?" Wang Teng stumbled, looking at the other party weirdly. This lady just saw him naked a moment ago, and now, she wanted to study his body. This was too much. "Doctor, you can't do research on a martial warrior's blood for no reason." Dan Taixian opened her mouth and said, "All right." The female doctor shook her head sadly and left. Although she was Wang Ting's personal doctor, he asked them to treat the other patients and not waste time here. After all, he understood his body the best. With his recovery ability, his injury would soon heal. There was no need to waste any medical resources. "Have a good rest. We'll see if there are others who need help." Dan Taixian and the others noticed that Wang Ting was fine, so they also left. There was still a pile of matters waiting for them to resolve. Everyone went to do their things, leaving only the Wang family and Lin Chuhan's family. The Lin family had always been there, resting close to the Wang family. They only came when they noticed that Wang Teng was awake. Wang Teng met Lin Chuhan's eyes and read the complicated emotions in them. There was worry, relief, respect, and love. Both of them remained silent. Li Xiumei gave an amiable smile when she saw this scene. She waved her hand silently to ask the people around to leave. Then, she pulled Mother Lin's hand and started chatting happily with her at the side. If others didn't know them, they might think that they had known each other for more than 10 years. This was the first time Wang Teng's family had met Lin Chuhan's family. No one expected it to be in this situation. "I'm very strong. I'll be fine," Wang Ting broke the silence and said with a smile. "Act according to your ability next time. Don't push yourself too hard. We're all worried for you." Lin Chuhan's throat was dry, and her voice was hoarse. "How worried are you?" Wang Ting looked at her pretty face and suddenly felt like teasing her. Lin Chuhan took a deep breath when she saw his cheeky look. She glared at him and said stubbornly, "Not too much. Just like how I'm worried for wild cats and dogs." Wang Ting was rendered speechless. He felt that he was so miserable. He was on the same level as wild cats and dogs. Chapter 548 Bullshit. Lin Chuhan had only spoken a few words with Wang Teng before Lin Chuxia came over impatiently. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes involuntarily. Lin Chuxia didn't have any idea that she was the third wheel. She chuckled and said, "Brother Wang Ting, where have you been for so long?" Once Lin Chuxia took the lead, Xu Wantong, Tian Xiaoxiao, and Wang Ting's classmates from afar walked over too. Lu Shu, Hu Pingliang, and some others were among them. Wang Ting smiled at them. They were all martial arts students, so there was no need to hide anything. He replied, "I accidentally went to the Darkland." Darkland? They were shocked. "Are you sure you went to the Darkland?" Hu Pingliang asked curiously. "Why would I lie to you?" Wang Ting rolled his eyes at him. "Haha, that's not it. We just find it unbelievable." Hu Pingliang smiled awkwardly. Then, he followed up, "What is it like there?" "The whole place is filled with high-level dark apparitions." "What do you think?" Wang Ting asked. Hu Pingliang and the others felt their head turning numb when they heard this. Think about it. Alone in the Darkland, surrounded by numerous dark apparitions. Goodness, just imagining the scene gave them goosebumps. It was too scary. Everyone looked at Wang Ting in astonishment and bewilderment. How did Wang Ting manage to escape in that situation? How did you escape and come back? Xu Wantong asked the question on everyone's minds. Escape? Wang Teng gave a look of contempt. "I slaughtered my way back. You should have seen that scene. I lifted my sword, again and again, chopping my way from the south of the dark apparition's holy city to the north. It was a magnificent moment. So, escape isn't the right word for it. Look at you boasting." Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. He was so exaggerating. If he wanted to fool them, he should do it properly. Did he think that they were stupid? "I never knew that you were so good at boasting." Xu Wantong was speechless. She turned and said to Lin Chuhan, "Chuhan, you must be careful in the future. This fellow is full of bullshit. He might be a scumbag. F***K, you're framing me." Wang Teng was furious. He glared at her. "You have to believe me. Before I left, I bombed the holy city of the dark apparitions and even took their tresu. Wang Teng caught himself in time. Damn it, he almost spilled the beans. Took what? A burst of laughter came from the distance. Governor Jiang, Yi Jisin, and some others accompanied Dan Taixian over. They weren't here just now, so they came to take a look after they heard that Wang Ting was awake. The speaker was Governor Jiang. His eyes were shining like a hungry wolf who saw its prey. "Nothing, nothing. What treasure?" "Governor, you heard wrong." Wang Ting shook his head and denied it firmly. Then, he looked innocently at Dan Taixian and asked, "Master, you just left. Why are you back again? Are you saying I can't come back?" Dan Taixian looked at him calmly and asked. Wang Ting's heart dropped. He hurriedly laughed and said, "Of course not. Who dares to stop you?" Dan Taixian heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Ting was stronger than her now. It would be embarrassing if she couldn't suppress him. Fortunately, this fellow still respected his master. Governor Jiang opened his mouth impatiently and asked, "Wang Ting, did you take the dark apparition's treasures?" Everyone looked at Wang Ting strangely when they heard this. Did this fellow honestly do that? How's that possible? "I don't have that ability. I was just boasting." Wang Ting shook his head hurriedly. "Chimph, I don't believe you." Dan Taixian scoffed in her heart, but she didn't say anything. Wang Teng was her disciple. She couldn't help outsiders. Governor Jiang continued, "Based on your personality, it's not out of the picture. You got the treasures based on your ability. No one will snatch them from you. There's no need for you to hide anything." "Chimph, why will I believe you?" Wang Teng snorted in his heart. His reaction was the same as Dan Taixian, but it was directed at a different person. Did Governor Jiang think that he was as easy to fool as a 3-year-old child? If he showed his treasures to them, it would be inappropriate for him not to donate them. I really didn't. I saw them, but I didn't have the time to take them." Wang Teng spoke in a regretful tone, putting on a professional performance. Governor Jiang didn't care if he took it or not. He pointed around him and said, "Look at Donghai now. It's in ruins. Many people have lost their homes. The old had no food, and the young can't go to school. Do you have any feelings when you see this? Wang Ting's face turned black. He was guilt-tripping him. As expected, a righteous clause was slammed on him. Should he help or not? Governor, let's get straight to the point. Our Wang family is in Donghai too, and we also suffered losses. Look at our house. We don't even have a home now. We are a bunch of homeless people. Wang Teng didn't respond to the question, complaining about his plight instead. He wouldn't fork out anything. He was just a normal person, not a saint. He was already sacrificing his interest when he stepped out and risked his life to win the war. There was no reason for him to empty his pockets too, right? Furthermore, he wasn't the governor of Donghai, so it wasn't his responsibility to give the money. In these circumstances, he needed to think for the Wang family. What would their future be like? How could they build their business again? Money was a necessity, so his treasures could be put to use there. Anyway, besides some special items, most of the treasures were useless to him. He would rather use them to develop the Wang family. It would benefit him if the Wang family grew stronger. Grandpa Wang and Wang Shanghua heard their conversation and understood the situation somewhat. At the start, they were worried that Wang Ting couldn't withstand the guilt trip and would cave. From the looks of it, this fellow wasn't that naive. His acting was on par with sly old foxes like them who had been in the business world for a long time. Governor Jiang felt a little awkward when he heard Wang Teng's reply. He now looked like a bad guy trying to snatch the other person's treasures. Dodging Wang Teng's gaze, he looked at Grandpa Wang. "Mr. Wang, what do you say?" "Greetings." Grandpa Wang was polite. He bowed before he opened his mouth. To be honest, the Wang family has suffered heavy losses this time. The majority of our business is destroyed, and we don't know if we can stand up again. We can't offer any help. Also, Capital Shia will definitely do something about the Donghai crisis. Reinforcements will arrive soon, so there's no need to hurry. Chapter 549 The Ending of the Three Lord-Level Sea Beast. Grandpa Wang was more artistic in his words. He wasn't as direct as Wang Ting. Instead, he mentioned the country. No matter what, the country had to take the lead in this. It didn't make sense if Wang Ting was to act before the country. Governor Jiang was forced into a corner by Grandpa Wang's words. He gave a bitter smile and said, "That makes sense, but relying on the country isn't enough if we want Donghai to regain its glory. We need help from everyone. We can discuss that later. You can gather people from all walks of life and hold a meeting to discuss this issue. I think that everyone will be happy to help Donghai," Grandpa Wang said calmly, pushing the responsibility away. Governor Jiang felt his head hurt. Both the old and young from the Wang family weren't easy to deal with. In the past, he hated talking to businessmen the most. If he couldn't win them in speech, he would force them to agree with his authority. But the Wang family was different. Wang Teng belonged to the military. He had a military title and was powerful. Governor Jiang felt that he couldn't win against Wang Ting. He was a monster. He was a rock that was hard to bite. No, he was a diamond. He would only break his teeth if he tried to bite him. Wang Ting sniggered in his heart when he saw Governor Jiang's helpless expression. He secretly gave Grandpa Wang a thumbs up. The older, the wiser. Grandpa Wang raised his eyebrows. However, his expression remained the same, not giving himself away. "All right, let's put this on hold. We'll come up with a plan in the future." Governor Jiang gave Wang Ting a meaningful look. The brat must have taken countless treasures from the Darkland. He had to get some from him. In the end, Governor Jiang left unwillingly. He would be back, though. Seriously. Dan Taixian pointed at Wang Ting and smiled as she shook her head. Although she didn't say anything just now, she had already shown her stand. If possible, she hoped that Wang Ting would offer a helping hand. Wang Ting smiled and didn't reply to her. They won't ask you to give the money for nothing. You will be able to get some benefits too. You can decide how you want to grasp the chance, Dan Taixian continued. Wang Ting started considering it seriously. He nodded. He hadn't thought of that possibility. If there was an exchange, he might be able to accept it. I wonder how many people are still willing to stay in Donghai after this riot. Yi Jisin sighed. His words stunned everyone. The sea beast riot had destroyed Donghai completely. The consequences were too terrifying. Despite the positive result, everyone probably still had lingering fears, so the normal citizens might leave the city and not stay here anymore. Inland might not be safe either. Although the coast has sea beasts, the inland has star beasts, Dan Taixian said. To strengthen the defense of Donghai, we can carve rune arrays on the 3 mountains and make them our first line of defense. Normal sea beasts won't be able to pass through them, Wang Teng said with a glint in his eyes. I forgot that you're a rune master too. Dan Taixian glanced at him and nodded. There will be rune masters coming to reinforce us very soon. You can discuss it with them. This is your forte. Wang Teng nodded. Xu Wantong, Hu Pingliang, and the others were dumbfounded when they saw Wang Ting talking to all these important characters on equal footing. They looked like they had seen a ghost. We went through 9 years of compulsory education too. Why are you able to calmly talk to the bosses while we are shivering at the side? The difference was a bit too much. Night arrived. Everyone sat on the ground and took out dried goods. They started eating their food. Stars shone brightly in the night sky, casting a dim light on the wreck. The people looked at the ruins in front with a heavy heart. They were still alive, but many people had lost their families and friends. After this sea beast riot, many people were unable to come back anymore. Wang Teng's eyes flickered. He said, "Stop eating dried goods. We have so much seafood. What a waste if we don't eat them." His words were accompanied by a loud bang. The corpses of 3 huge sea beasts appeared on the empty ground in front. Everyone was dumbstruck. These were Lord-level sea beasts. Were they really going to eat them? This was a little extravagant. Hearing the commotion, Wang Depao and Dan Taixian hurried over. They gathered in front and looked at Wang Ting with an intense gaze. They seemed to be saying, "Hurry up and start cooking." Lin Chuhan, Xu Wantong, Hu Pingliang, and the others went speechless when they saw this scene. They were general stage martial warriors. Shouldn't they take care of their images? But they could finally confirm that they really planned to eat the Lord-level sea beasts. They were astounded, and their eyes also started shining. These sea beasts were huge. A few more servings shouldn't matter, right? They wouldn't eat much, just a little was enough. After all, these were Lord-level sea beasts. They didn't know if they would ever have the chance to taste such a delicacy again if they missed this chance. The Wang family exchanged glances with one another and swallowed their saliva unconsciously. Wang Teng smiled. He immediately waved his hand, and a green flame emerged. The 3 sea beasts were immediately engulfed by the flames. Wang Ting controlled his spiritual power and lifted them in mid-air. He started barbecuing them from all corners. It was time for the Force Chef Master to come out again. Wang Ting immediately started his amazing show. There was no way he could do it normally. The sea beasts were huge, so he had to fly up and down to scatter the seasonings evenly on them. Keeping their size in mind, a large amount of seasoning was needed. Wang Teng's stash wasn't enough, but fortunately, he received some from the other martial warriors. After some time, a strong fragrance wafted out. The 3 Lord-level sea beasts had turned golden brown. One look was enough to whet one's appetite. The windstorm giant ape would never have thought of this ending. Even the people further away noticed the situation here. They looked over and swallowed their saliva. "All right, free for all. Eat as much as you can." Wang Ting waved his hand and cut a few pieces of meat. He distributed them to the Wang family and Lin Chuhan's family. This was an obvious bias. Everyone rolled their eyes uncontrollably. However, Wang Ting caught these sea beasts. Back then, everyone thought he would hand the 3 sea beasts over. Yet, he killed them right in front of the windstorm giant ape. He was a little bold and reckless, but he managed to keep the 3 sea beasts. If it was another person, they would have handed them over. It was impossible for them to taste this Lord-level seafood. Lin Chuhan blushed slightly when she noticed everyone's gaze. This fellow favored her in front of everyone, making her a little shy. Xu Wantong and Tian Xiaoxiao winked at her and teased her silently. However, they were a little jealous too. Hu Pingliang, Lu Shu, and the others chuckled and looked at them ambiguously. Although they had injuries on their bodies, it was nothing serious. They would recover after some rest. With his thick skin, Wang Ting didn't mind the attention. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. Mother Lin smiled when she saw his reaction. She was starting to like Wang Ting more and more. Lin Chuxia didn't care about any of it. She grabbed the seafood and took a huge bite. It was freshly barbecued, so she got scalded, crying embarrassedly in pain. The others were getting impatient. They pounced on the seafood as if they hadn't eaten for many days. Oh my God, as expected of Lord-level sea beasts. This lobster meat is tender and delicious. It's amazing. Wang Depao exclaimed. Look at you. Sister Han slapped him on the shoulder. She felt that he was embarrassing her. Wang Depao shrunk his neck and chuckled. He was known for listening to his wife. There was no chance of him getting rid of this title. Sister Han was too lazy to bother about him. She took a bite of the seafood, and her eyes lit up. This tastes good. It's delicious, right? See, I was right, Wang Depao said proudly. Why are you taking the credit? Without little brother Wang, we wouldn't be able to eat this. Sister Han glared at him from the corner of her eyes. It's the same. I did my part too, Wang Depao said softly. Everyone laughed as they watched the couple quarreling as usual. The Wang family didn't get much. A normal person wouldn't be able to withstand the energy within. But even with the small piece of meat, they savored it happily. They were afraid of finishing it too quickly. Unfortunate to be able to taste Lord-level star beast meat at this age, Grandpa Wang said with a smile. Grandpa, what are you saying? With me around, I promise that you will get to eat it in the future, Wang Tang replied. Ha ha ha, good. Grandpa Wang laughed heartily. The Wang family looked at Wang Ting and smiled involuntarily. Little brother Wang, have some liquor. Wang Depao took out a bottle of white liquor and threw it at him. How can you have seafood without alcohol? Let's drink mine. Wang Ting took out the high-quality wine he received from the dwarfs. He poured the white liquor away and filled the bottle with the wine. Then, he tossed it back to Wang Depao. Wang Depao caught it and took a huge gulp. He gave a satisfied burp. His eyes were shining as he sighed and said, Good wine, why didn't you take it out earlier? Wang Ting couldn't be bothered with him. Yi Jisin's nose moved. He seemed to have smelled the fragrance of the wine, and a smile formed on his lips. Pour me some. Dan Taixian glanced at Wang Ting. She didn't say anything, but she signaled with her eyes. Wang Ting acted instantly. He distributed some wine for everyone. It wasn't much since there wasn't much wine left. He needed to save it. The next time he visited Xingwu continent, he felt that he should visit the dwarfs again. His stock was running low. You're having a comfortable time here eating good food. Governor Jiang and General Chen from the Donghai military walked over from afar. They had been working the entire day and were famished. They started eating without any invitation. Then, Peng Yuanshan, Tong Hu, Fu Tiandao, and other general stage martial warriors rushed over. No one could resist the temptation of delicious food. As more people gathered, with the accompaniment of good food and wine, the atmosphere turned lively. Wang Teng didn't plan to keep the food to himself. He asked the soldiers beside him to distribute the seafood. There was enough for everyone to eat. Governor Jiang ordered the force chefs of Donghai to cook some edible seafood and distribute it to everyone. A strong fragrance floated over the entire Donghai. With the help of delicious food, more smiles appeared on everyone's faces. Chapter 550 Ultimate Stage Talent. The night was dark and starry. The seafood feast had ended, and many people were physically and mentally exhausted. A majority of them were already in deep sleep. However, many of them were frowning. They might not even find peace while dreaming. He just hoped that time could heal all those wounds. Wang Ting gazed at the night sky and sighed. When he turned and saw everyone in deep sleep, there was an inexplicable calmness in his heart. At least his family and friends didn't have to go through all of this. At this moment, he finally understood the benefits of being powerful. It was not only for himself but also for those around him. "Why are you not asleep?" A soft voice woke him up from his thoughts. Wang Ting looked at Lin Chuhan, who was lying nearby with Mother Lin, and smiled. "I'll cultivate for a while more. Go to sleep." Looking at his face, Lin Chuhan was filled with emotions. Others only saw his unmatched talent, but not how he was still cultivating late at night. It was no wonder that he was so strong at such a young age. That was what he deserved. If Wang Ting knew what she was thinking, would he be ashamed of himself? Probably not. He was too thick-skinned. Lin Chuhan was lost in her thoughts. She felt that his face had a different kind of charm. This guy was actually good-looking. Such a beautiful misunderstanding. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Wang Ting asked curiously. It's nothing. You should get some sleep. Lin Chuhan blushed slightly and was a little flustered. She wrapped herself in the sleeping bag and hurriedly closed her eyes. Wang Ting shook his head with a smile and sat with his legs crossed before closing his eyes. After a while, Lin Chuhan sneaked a glance at Wang Ting. She saw that he had already entered the state of cultivation and was slightly relieved. Smiling, she closed her eyes. After a while, there was a regular breathing sound escaping from her nose. Wang Ting focused on his attributes panel. He had gained a lot during the Sea Beast riot. First off were the spirit and enlightenment attributes. These two attributes had improved by a small amount. Spirit, 103,000, Imperial Realm, Enlightenment, 125,000, Imperial Realm. After all, the sea beasts were not as spiritually chaotic as the dark apparitions and would not drop as many spirit attributes. That was why his spirit attribute did not increase much this time. It was the same for the enlightenment. Since the sea beasts didn't seem to be very intelligent, they would naturally drop fewer enlightenment attributes. The source of these enlightenment attributes was basically from humans. Then came battlefield awareness. It remained at the 9-star level ever since the battle at Star Maple City, even after increasing by 2,000 points. Battlefield awareness, 39,000, 9-star, however, at his current level, it was enough to crush ordinary general stage martial warriors. Next was the talent column. Wang Ting's gaze swept through the board and saw a few changes in the talent attributes. Among those, the water talent had improved a lot. After all, it was the most common amongst sea beasts. Furthermore, he had killed 3 Lord-level sea beasts and had obtained a huge number of advanced stage water talent attributes. Ultimate stage water talent, 565,000. Without a doubt, the water talent had reached another level, from the advanced stage to the ultimate stage. Ultimate stage. Wang Ting could feel his body changing, and his affinity with the water force had increased multiple times. He could feel the abundance of water force in the faraway ocean. It felt as though he could draw out the water force from its depths and use it as his own. On top of that, there were also 2 other talents that had reached the ultimate stage. Ultimate stage lightning talent, 1055,000. Ultimate stage wind talent, 3055,000. These 2 talents' attributes were from the windstorm giant ape, a terrifying sea beast with the attributes of water, wind, and lightning. Wang Ting was impressed. It was his first time seeing an ultimate stage talent, but he had managed to obtain 3 of them from the windstorm giant ape. No wonder it was able to reach such a powerful stage. Now that he was thinking about it, Wang Ting had a lingering fear. The rest of his talents had also improved, but not as much as those 3. Wang Ting then looked at the force column and smiled with satisfaction. The 5 elements had all reached the 10-star general stage. There was probably no one who could compare to him. Metal force, 3210,000, 10-star, wood force, 2560-10,000, 10-star, water force, 7630-10,000, 10-star, fire force, 1530-10,000, 10-star, earth force, 1710-10,000, 10-star, among them. The water force was undoubtedly the attribute that had increased the most. It had reached the 10-star advanced stage and was not far from a breakthrough. It was mostly because there were too many sea beasts. The amount of water force they provided was simply staggering. In fact, many of the water force attribute bubbles had vanished automatically. Wang Ting didn't have the luxury to collect them at any given time. Otherwise, his water force might have reached the 11-star low-tier general stage. It was such a pity. What a huge waste. Wang Teng shook his head and didn't want to dwell on it. If he thought about it any longer, he might die in regret. He looked at the other elements and became happy again. This time around, even his ice, wind, and lightning force had improved a lot. Ice force, 324,000, 6-star, wind force, 1154,000, 6-star, lightning force, 5359,000, 9-star. There were quite a few mutated beasts with the ice attribute. Even the deep-sea giant python had the ice attribute. As a result, Wang Teng's ice force had increased by a huge margin, reaching the 6-star soldier level. The wind force was from the windstorm giant ape, and it had increased a lot as well, similarly reaching the 6-star soldier level. The lightning force was also from the ape. Although it was at the 9-star soldier level, it had improved by thousands of attribute points. Well, the windstorm giant ape had really provided him with a whole lot of attributes. Thanks. If there was a chance, Wang Ting would still want to kill it. He would definitely gain more. But the windstorm giant ape was too strong. It might have reached the 13-star lord level. This time, he had to use the space tornado and cheat his way through in order to scare it away and make it retreat. Besides, there were many human martial warriors at the back, which was one of the reasons why the windstorm giant ape was afraid. Otherwise, if it was Wang Teng alone, the windstorm giant ape would have pushed on till the very end. Therefore, before he reached the 12-star general stage, Wang Teng would not dare to provoke it. He still wanted to live longer. Wang Teng turned to the section of scripture and battle techniques. It was a pity that there weren't any advanced stage scripture and battle techniques. After all, there were no casualties among the strong ones. That was a good thing. Wang Teng suppressed the evil thoughts in his heart. He should never have such thoughts. Suddenly, Wang Teng's eyes stopped. He had noticed a special kind of skill, deep sea breathing. This skill must have come from some kind of sea beast. Wang Teng was certain. When he saw the skill, the relevant information immediately appeared in his mind. It was a skill that could allow him to breathe in the deep sea. It might not seem like a powerful skill, but it was very useful. I can actually use my nostrils and breathe. That's amazing, Wang Ting said to himself with excitement. General stage martial warriors could hold their breaths underwater, but there was still a limit. Furthermore, it consumed their force. It was not as good as deep-sea breathing. Wang Ting really wanted to try it right away, but he gave up in the end. In a situation like this, it was best not to walk around. If someone woke up and couldn't find him, they would worry needlessly. Lastly, it was the blank attributes. They were the ones that Wang Ting picked up the most this time. He had used them on Heart of Zhongyan, Ancient God's Body, and Space Tornado. As a result, there was not much left. Fortunately, these three skills were powerful, and the blank attributes were not wasted. Blank attribute, 4600 at this point, he had 4600 blank attributes remaining. It seemed like a lot, but as he got stronger, these blank attributes were naturally not enough for him. He needed to employ limited resources where they were needed most. Wang Teng decided to stay put for the time being. He would consider how to use them once he picked up more blank attributes in the future. After counting his gains, Wang Ting let out a sigh of relief. Every time there was a huge battle, he would reap huge benefits, and his strength would skyrocket. It was supposed to be something to be happy about, but he felt burdened. In every battle, death was inevitable. The attributes he had were all exchanged with the deaths of martial warriors. Wang Ting shook his head. It wasn't because he was sentimental, but because he felt that these attributes were stained with blood. It would be fine if it was only the blood of the dark apparitions and star beasts. However, lots of human blood was also spilled, making the attribute bubbles seem heavy. He suddenly felt that when God gave him this attribute system, he didn't mean well. That was right. That must be it. He didn't understand it before, but the more he thought about it, the more he felt that way. He felt rage in his heart and pointed his middle finger to the sky. Chapter 551 Wang Family's Decision. The next day, everyone's emotions got better, and the exhaustion on their bodies subsided a little. Early in the morning, sunlight scattered on the earth. A thin mist floated above the ruins of Donghai. Many people were already getting busy. Governor Jiang and the higher authorities of Donghai had woken up at 4 a.m. They were running everywhere and organizing all the work. General Chen and the military patrolled around Donghai to maintain order. This was a fragile moment. It was possible that some people would snap under the pressure and commit illogical acts in this situation. Yesterday at midnight, the reinforcements from the different cities had arrived. They included medical staff, alchemists, rune masters, and many more. They had already started working. There were also architects, city planners, designers, railway engineers, and other top talents from various fields sent from all around the country. It was hard to imagine that these many people had gathered in Donghai in a single night. Besides, more talents would arrive continuously to contribute their effort in rebuilding Donghai. Wang Ting had noticed the commotion yesterday night, but it had nothing to do with him, so he cultivated in peace. He disregarded what was happening around him. The people around him started waking up one by one. The first thing Lin Chuhan did when she opened her eyes was to look at Wang Ting. He was sitting on a huge rock and breathing in the force from heaven and earth as he cultivated. Thick force had formed a faint mist around his body, making the morning glow look holy. The other members of the Wang family woke up. Soon, they also noticed Wang Ting. They were astounded. Was this the cultivation of a martial warrior? Amazing. They had a sudden thought. From the looks of it, Wang Ting had been cultivating the entire night. He was indeed hardworking. Li Xiaomei felt her heart hurting. This was her son, so she couldn't bear to see him suffer. What if his legs turned numb after sitting the entire night? On the other hand, Grandpa Wang and Wang Shenghua felt relieved. Even with his achievements, Wang Ting wasn't arrogant and conceited. He continued to cultivate hard, as expected of their child. At the same time, Wang Ting sensed that everyone was awake. He completed his last round of force circulation before opening his eyes. A sharp glint shot out of his eyes, but it disappeared instantly. Everyone was surprised as they evaded his gaze. Wang Ting's gaze wasn't scary. They just couldn't stare directly at the sharp light left over from his cultivation. Everyone is awake. Wang Ting smiled. We've been up for a long time. We were waiting for you, Lin Chuhan said. Wang Ting was speechless. He didn't sleep the entire night, but he became the last person to wake up. Who could he complain to? In his heart, he grumbled that ladies were hard to interact with. Then, a tinge of helplessness appeared on his face. Silence meant consent. He agreed with Lin Chuhan silently. He wasn't stupid, so he wouldn't reason with a lady. After everyone finished their breakfast, Wang Teng and Grandpa Wang gathered together to discuss the future development of the Wang family and their future home. What does everyone think? Tell me your thoughts. Grandpa Wang looked around and asked. They all glanced at Wang Ting unconsciously. I feel that Donghai is very dangerous now, so we should relocate. I can bring my family along. They will definitely listen to the Wang family, Wang Ting's oldest aunt, Zhao Huili, suddenly said. Everyone looked at her with a hint of helplessness on their faces. Zhao Huili had no bad intentions, but her foresight was a little shallow. If things were that simple, they wouldn't need to gather and discuss. Shut up. Don't say anything if you don't know anything. Wang Shenghong glared at his wife. Zhao Huili felt a little wronged. She wanted to refute. Grandpa Wang opened his mouth at this moment. He waved his hand and said, It's all right. Huili is just stating our last resort. See, father says him right. Zhao Huili got proud in an instant. All right, stop talking, Wang Shenghong said impatiently. Zhao Huili was furious. She still wanted to offer a retort. Mom, let's listen to what Wang Ting has to say, Wang Yanan pulled her hand and said. Zhao Huili glanced at Wang Ting and turned quiet immediately. When they were hiding in the underground shelter, she had personally witnessed how powerful Wang Ting was. You could say that in the entire Wang family, the only person she was more fearful and had more respect for than Grandpa Wang was Wang Ting. Wang Ting smiled. Actually, Aunt is right. Zhao Huili puffed up her chest when she heard Wang Teng agreeing with her viewpoint. She snorted at Wang Shenghong. Everyone was shocked. Little Teng, Wang Shenghong asked curiously. Uncle, don't worry. I'm not done yet. Moving away is a good choice, but that's only for other people. I feel that for the Wang family, staying in Donghai is the wisest option, Wang Teng said confidently. Oh, why do you think so? Grandpa Wang smiled and asked. Grandpa, you're testing me, aren't you? Wang Teng laughed. He didn't probe further and continued, y'all are not martial warriors, so you don't know some insider information. The family was startled by his words. They glanced at one another. Actually, the world isn't as safe as what everyone thinks, whichever corner you're at. The Star Beasts riot is one, but there are other reasons too. These reasons are worse than the Star Beasts, Wang Ting said. What? Everyone was flabbergasted, their faces turning pale. What reason was more terrifying than the Sea Beasts riot? Son, what are they? Can you tell us? Wang Shenghua asked. I can talk about it, but there are many taboos. Wang Teng hesitated. In the end, he still acted on his own accord and briefly told his family about the dark apparitions. However, he used voice transmission to transmit his voice into their ears. The Wang family was appalled when they heard this. Wang Teng didn't explain in detail, but the tip of the iceberg he revealed was enough to frighten them. How did the world become so dangerous? They used to live in a peaceful environment, so these disasters were a bit hard to imagine. So, staying in Donghai is the best option. My foundation is here. I can protect you to the best of my ability here. If anything happens in Donghai and I'm not around, the higher authorities of Donghai will offer protection to the Wang family immediately. In other countries, we won't be able to receive similar treatment, Wang Teng said slowly. Everyone turned silent. After some time, Grandpa Wang heaved a long sigh and said, Little Ting is right. This is what I wanted to say to you. Rather than finding an unfamiliar place and passing our safety to unfamiliar people, we should stay in our homeland and go through thick and thin with it. Chapter 552 Major General Wang. When Grandpa Wang finished speaking, Wang Ting added, one more thing, the sea beasts have just been chased away. Unless they're really mad, they wouldn't dare to attack us again for a long time. That is true. No one can guarantee that the star beasts won't attack the other cities. After all, the world is not peaceful. Wang Shenjun exclaimed. Zhao Huili turned pale after listening to their comments. Then, let's stay at Donghai. Everyone laughed uncontrollably. The steadfast Wang Shenghong couldn't help but roll his eyes. He was left speechless by his wife. Wang Yanan was a little embarrassed and wanted to cover her face. However, that was her mother, and as her daughter, she couldn't just leave her alone. I agree with Little Ting's decision to stay in Donghai. Fang Junming spoke up. Wang Shenghong and Wang Shenjun didn't have any doubts. They were fully convinced by Wang Teng. Whether or not this home would still be around, it all depended on Wang Teng. Wang Shenghua naturally didn't have anything to say. That was his son. If he didn't support him, no one would. All of you don't have to worry so much. After this riot, Donghai will certainly build up its defenses, and it will be safer for everyone. When we rebuild the Wang family in the future, I suggest our families should live in the same place. I'll set up rune defense arrays. It would be impossible for ordinary martial warriors and star beasts to break through. Everyone will be safe. Wang Ting comforted them. The Wang family heaved a sigh of relief and felt a lot more at ease. Since everyone has no objections, it's settled then. Just as Grandpa Wang finished speaking, a group of people came over from a distance. Hey, it's them. Grandpa Wang smiled. I was just thinking when they would come. Looks like they couldn't wait past the second day. The others turned their heads and recognized them. In a situation like this, every family is overwrought. Besides, they are close to our Wang family. It wouldn't be weird for them to come to us. Wang Shenghong smiled. There are a few families that are close to our Wang family. If it's possible, let's help them out. As for the other families, before our Wang family rose in power, they didn't care about us. We can return the favor now. Grandpa Wang sneered. Everyone knew it in their hearts. None of the Wang family heads were people you could mess around with. While they were talking, the people from the other families came closer. Mr. Wang Ting. The leaders of the families greeted Wang Ting first, but they all felt weird. Wang Ting was much younger than them. In the past, he was considered as their nephew, but now, no one dared to treat him like a normal junior. They were not related by blood, and they were not arrogant enough to be a general stage martial warrior's senior. Grandpa Wang. The leaders then greeted Grandpa Wang Shengguo, Wang Shenghong, and the rest returned the greeting, paying attention to everything, just like how family leaders would carry themselves. Wang Teng saw Xu Jie and Bai Weiyi beside them and smiled in his head. They were trying to use his friends to curry favor, but he didn't seem to mind and called them out: Xu Hui, Bai Weiyi, Yu Hao, and Sister Su Hui. Brother Teng. They cried out in embarrassment. After all, they were too young. Their families were making a fuss about their relationship, embarrassing them a little. Wang Ting. Xu Hui was older and nodded at Wang Ting with a hint of restraint. She was feeling complicated in her heart. When they were young, they had a very good relationship. But why did Wang Ting seem to have no interest in her after meeting at the auction the last time? She really didn't understand. And now that Wang Ting's strength had improved, she felt that they were drifting apart from each other. She wanted to find a way to stop that, but he was always gone, and there was nothing she could do about it. Now, there was a trace of sadness in her heart. Wang Teng didn't know about Xu Hui's complicated thoughts. He looked at the family leaders and stayed silent. Grandpa Wang got his hint and understood at once. He smiled. Why are you here when you have family matters to deal with? The family leaders exchanged glances with one another and smiled awkwardly. The leader of the Xu family was Xu Jie's uncle. He was a refined middle-aged man. He glanced at Wang Teng before turning his head and speaking to Grandpa Wang directly. Mr. Wang, I won't beat around the bush. I do have something to ask from you today. The moment he finished speaking, a shout was heard from the sky. A figure was floating in mid-air. It was Fu Tiandao. He went straight to the point. Wang Teng, Governor Jiang and the President are looking for you. Please come with me quickly. Wang Teng knew what was going on, so he nodded and said, Everyone, I'll make a move first. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. He tapped the floor lightly with his feet and turned into a ray of light, following behind Fu Tiandao. The leaders of the other families raised their heads and looked at him in envy. This was the trump card of the Wang family. Wang Ting followed Fu Tiandao to the center of Donghai. Some of the buildings here had a better defense, so they weren't completely destroyed. Governor Jiang, Yi Jisin, and the other important people were having a meeting here. When Wang Ting walked into the meeting room, Governor Jiang smiled and said, Everyone, the person you wanted to meet is here. The people in the meeting room turned their heads and saw a young man walking in. They were astounded. They had seen Wang Ting on the screen before, so they knew that he was an extraordinary young man. He was extremely powerful. However, when they saw the real person, their feelings were different. At first glance, he seemed like a normal and ordinary young man, but if they looked carefully, they could tell that he was suppressing his aura. His gaze was deep like a dragon hiding in the abyss. Major General Wang, nice to meet you. These people's aura wasn't weak either. They were all powerful people who were in high positions. If not, they wouldn't be here. Right now, though, they all greeted him politely. Major General. Wang Teng was stunned when he heard this greeting. When did he become a Major General? The military awarded you this title after the Star Maple City War, Dan Taishen said calmly as if she had just remembered this matter. Wang Teng was speechless. Why didn't they tell him earlier? This was such an important piece of news. He wondered when he would have known about it if the others didn't mention it. This was outrageous. He missed many chances to be arrogant because of this. Damn it. Wang Ting was filled with bitterness. The atmosphere turned a little strange. The others had noticed his abnormality, so their expressions turned a bit weird. As the receiver of the title, he only knew his identity now. This was unheard of. Cough, since everyone is present, Let's discuss the defense array for Donghai. Governor Jiang coughed and said. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 553 Is My Drawing Ugly? Everyone got serious when they went back to the main topic. Wang Teng remained quiet after he sat down. He could sense that everyone present was a rune master. Hence, they must have their own ideas of rune arrays. Since he had just arrived, he shouldn't interrupt them. As expected, no one asked for his opinion. They started expressing their views directly. From what I see, we can create a 3-mountain giant array on the 3 mountains young Master Wang carried over. No other array is better than this. The person who opened his mouth was a 40-year-old rune master who was slightly scrawny. Everyone started pondering after hearing his suggestion. An advanced stage rune master said, once this array is formed, the 3 mountains will be like 3 giant deities guarding the Donghai coastline. It can resist another invasion of sea beasts, and the defense isn't bad. No, it isn't appropriate. The scope of the 3-mountain giant array is limited. It will only cover the area where the 3 mountains are. The sea beasts can still go around the 3 mountains to attack Donghai. They didn't succeed this time because Major General Wang's actions were too unexpected. Those sea beasts couldn't come up with a countermeasure in time. Another rune master shook his head. Based on their intelligence, the sea beasts might not be able to think of a strategy. Hence, I feel that defending the area around the 3 mountains is enough. We can just send more people to guard the other areas. The rune master that spoke before voiced out again. There will always be careless omissions if we use humans. Chu Yongnian, you're too naive. Didn't you learn any lesson from the sea beasts' riot? Sichu Yun refuted without any mercy. He was the head of the rune faculty in Huanghai Military Academy. Hence, his rune mastery wasn't low. He was participating in this discussion too. Based on your words, it will only be safe if we encase the entire Donghai in a rune array, right? But, can we do it? Chu Yongnian snorted. He paused for a moment. When he noticed everyone keeping quiet, he continued, a normal array won't be able to withstand a Lord-level sea beast's attack. Even if we create it, it's useless. However, we don't have the ability to create advanced arrays. In that case, why don't we gather everyone's strength and form an array that's able to block Lord-level sea beasts' attacks? Everyone was in a dilemma. They had to admit that Chu Yongnian was right. The coastline was the most important defense of Donghai. Protecting that area was equivalent to protecting Donghai. The problem wasn't which idea was better. It was whether they had the ability to do it. They felt helpless, but that was the undeniable truth. Earth's foundation in runes was still too weak. They could form an array to cover the entire city since there were a few master-level rune masters here, but the arrays had different levels too. Their understanding of the more advanced arrays was still shallow. Why don't we ask the rune masters from the Xingwu continent to help? Someone hesitated before suggesting. Everyone was shocked. Then, they seriously started considering it. That's a good idea. Earth's relationship with the Xingwu continent is getting closer. I don't think they will reject us if we ask them for some help. Who knows? They hide their powerful rune arrays quite well. Only the direct descendants of the rune masters will be able to get these powerful arrays. Other than that, it's impossible to get them. They won't show it to us easily. We have helped them so much, but they are still guarding against us, someone complained. Well, do the same too. After a round of discussion, no results were obtained. Wang Ting's expression turned a little weird. These people kept complaining about the difficulty. Well, he did learn some rune knowledge from Gorlin, so he felt that it wasn't that difficult. Could it be that the powerful arrays they were talking about were a different thing? Also, he would be able to create the rune arrays without any help from Xingwu continent too. After all, his rune mastery had already reached a certain profound stage. However, if he said it himself, he would be suspected of boasting. They might not believe him at all. Wang Ting was in deep thought. How could he say it so that his boasting would seem logical? You have been discussing it for a long time, but there's no result. In that case, why don't you ask the relevant party? Wang Ting moved the 3 mountains, so he might have a plan already. Dan Taixuan's impatient voice sounded at this moment. She thought that the rune masters would be able to achieve some progress, but in the end, no conclusions were formed. She felt speechless. The rune masters were stunned, feeling a little embarrassed. Then, they quickly looked at Wang Ting. Was Dan Taixuan saying that Wang Ting had an idea? Situ Yun's expression changed slightly. He knew that Wang Ting's rune talent was good, but that was it. Wang Ting hadn't spent much time in school. He would find it unbelievable if he knew that Wang Ting's rune mastery had surpassed him in a blink of an eye. But he knew that Dan Taixuan wouldn't speak without a reason. It seemed like Wang Ting was hiding something. The other rune masters didn't know anything about Wang Ting's rune mastery. They didn't even know that he was a rune master, so they were a little hesitant. However, someone still asked in the end, Major General Wang, do you have any ideas? Please give me a map of Donghai's surroundings, Wang Ting said to Governor Jiang. He didn't put forward his thoughts immediately. Governor Jiang was surprised before he ordered someone to get a map and laid it out in front of everyone. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. What is he going to do? Curious, everyone gathered in front. Wang Ting drew 3 huge mountains on the coastline first. Then, he crossed them out and started outlining Donghai. Can you see anything? Wang Ting said with a smile and a confident expression. He threw the pen casually on the table after he finished drawing. Speechless, they all looked at Wang Ting absent-mindedly. What was he drawing? Their eyesight was a little bad, so they couldn't tell what it was. Wang Ting's smile froze when he saw their expressions. He lowered his head and glanced at the map, asking in a soft voice, is my drawing ugly? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, everyone laughed awkwardly. If Wang Ting was just a younger generation, they would have reprimanded him furiously. What on earth was he drawing? Unfortunately, they couldn't. Wang Ting was too powerful and could kill them with a pinch. They couldn't afford to offend him. On the other hand, Dan Taixuan didn't have such a concern. She pouted and said, what the hell is this? Don't you know what your standard is? Wang Ting, why don't Major General Wang just explain it to us? Chu Yongnian said. Don't you think that this looks like a lifelike black tortoise? Wang Ting took a deep breath and replied helplessly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 554. Thank Master Wang for enlightening us. As everyone looked at the drawing on the map, they almost had a breakdown. You call this lifelike? They glanced at Wang Ting weirdly. There were many emotions in their gaze. Where did he get his confidence from? If they had to describe the drawing, it looked more like a pig's head or an elephant. You must have learned abstract art, Dan Taixuan mocked him mercilessly. Well, it's indeed a little abstract. Yi Jisin touched his chin and nodded. He didn't bother about the discussion before, but he couldn't help himself anymore. He walked over to take a look. Wang Ting was speechless when he saw them poking fun at his lifelike drawing blatantly. Enough. He grabbed the map, crushed it into a ball, and threw it into the rubbish bin. He said angrily, give me another map. Governor Jiang controlled his laughter and asked his man to take out another map. Wang Ting lifted the pen, took a deep breath, and started drawing freely. After some time, a black tortoise appeared on the paper under his confident gaze. Wang Ting looked at the people around him hopefully. Their answer? Suppressed smiles. This was hurtful. Wang Ting looked at his drawing again, feeling hopeless. Laugh all you want. I'm not helping with the array anymore. He was furious. He didn't care how abstract his drawing was anymore and leaned back on his chair angrily. The situation was already so bad that making it worse made no real difference. Cough, this drawing is not bad. Governor Jiang clenched his fist and placed it in front of his mouth as he coughed. Why don't you tell us what it represents? I don't want to. I'm not in the mood. Wang Tung pouted. First, they teased him, and then, they wanted him to give them ideas. How could that happen? Did they think he had no ego? All right, I know you're capable. Tell us quickly. Dan Taixian glanced at him and said. Wang Teng wasn't honestly going to keep it from them, so he went along with Dan Taixian. Actually, I wanted to make a joke to liven up the atmosphere. My drawing skills aren't at this level. Wang Teng started spouting nonsense. Everyone glanced sideways at him. Do you think we'll believe you? Wang Teng ignored their gazes. Who cared if they believed him or not? He just had to believe himself. He turned serious and continued, I know an array called the Black Tortoise Skylock Array. Black Tortoise Skylock Array? Everyone was stunned. They were filled with curiosity as they had never heard of this array before. Are you sure you didn't come up with the name to surprise us? Major General Wang, this array, Wang Ting interrupted Chu Yongnian before he could finish his sentence. I know what you want to ask. However, I don't want to explain anything. All you need to know is that I understand it and can make it. That is enough. Really? Sichu Yun glanced at everyone before confirming with Wang Teng. Is there a need to lie? My family and friends are in Donghai too. Will I take their lives as a joke? Wang Teng said. Is there anything special regarding this array? The other rune masters asked. They nodded and agreed with Wang Teng's logic. The Black Tortoise Skylock Array is just a normal array. Its defense ability is well known in the Xingwu continent, and it's said to be able to guard the sky, so guarding a city is a piece of cake, Wang Teng replied. Guard the sky? How arrogant. I wonder if it's truly so powerful? Chu Yongnian questioned. He wasn't targeting Wang Ting. He just felt that it was a little exaggerated, so he wasn't sure of its credibility. Major General Wang, are you a rune master too? Someone finally reacted and asked. Wang Teng is the disciple of a rune master in Xingwu continent. Also, he has reached the master level. Dan Taixian noticed their disbelief, so she spoke up. Master level. Everyone looked at Wang Ting in astonishment. Master level at such a young age? Principal Dan, are you sure you're not lying to us? Chu Yongnian questioned. During the Star Maple City War, Wang Teng commanded a group of talented rune masters from the Xingwu continent and completed a large-sized offensive array. Then, he helped the master-level rune masters to complete another more difficult array. Do you think I will lie to you about this? Dan Taixian replied angrily. This is unbelievable. They all finally believed her. There was no need for her to lie about this. Also, many people had participated in the Star Maple City War, so they could check the facts easily from others. Dan Taixian wouldn't be so stupid and lie to them when it was so easy for their lie to be caught. Sichu Yun was even more dumbfounded. This fellow was a monster. Not only was he talented in martial arts, but his rune mastery was profound too. It was hard to imagine. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. How confident are you regarding this array? Chu Yongnian took a deep breath and asked. More than 80%, Wang Teng replied confidently. 80%? Everyone was thunderstruck once again. This probability was a little too high. Mind you, this was a large-sized array, and the rune construction was extremely complicated. A 50% confidence was high enough, much less 80%. What do you think of this Black Tortoise Skylock Array? Governor Jiang was appalled too. However, he didn't understand runes, so he left it to the professionals. If Major General Wang is 80% confident and the defense ability of the array is really outstanding, there's no reason for us to reject the idea. Chu Yongnian glanced at everyone and said. Wang Ting will be in charge of this matter. We'll start laying the array immediately. Governor Jiang was decisive, giving his order right away. Okay. Wang Ting nodded. Since he was going to stay in Donghai, he wouldn't let others lead the formation of this defense array. He would only feel at ease if he did it himself. The other rune masters had no objections either. Wang Ting didn't waste any time. He immediately started explaining the structure of the Black Tortoise Skylock array to everyone. It would be a waste not to use all this free labor. This array might be precious, but he didn't plan to keep it to himself. He wanted to disseminate it. It was a contribution to the human race. After all, he had many similar arrays, and they were all free. Hence, he had no pressure. If he had spent a huge sum of money to buy them, he wouldn't be so generous. Wang Ting's rune mastery was many levels higher than everyone, so they all benefited a lot from his words. The rune masters were enchanted by his speech. They were confused for one moment and surprised for another. They were like students listening to a teacher. After some time, Wang Ting felt thirsty, so he stopped and drank some water. The rune masters were yearning for more, staring at him hopefully. Chu Yongnian suddenly stood up and bowed at Wang Ting. He said with respect, "Thank Master Wang for enlightening us." Even his greeting of Wang Ting had changed. He was calling him Major General Wang some time ago because he acknowledged his martial arts ability. Now, he respected his rune mastery. It was indeed profound. "Thank Master Wang for enlightening us." The other rune master reacted in time and stood up, giving him a deep bow. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 555 Little Yun, are you satisfied with him? Wang Ting didn't care that they called him master. He was already a master-level rune master, so he didn't need their acknowledgement. His spirit was at the imperial realm, exceeding all the rune masters present. He believed that it wouldn't take too long for him to become the one and only Grandmaster-level rune master on Earth. Even in the Xingwu continent, there were only a few Grandmaster-level rune masters. This was the accumulation of many years of history. Earth's development was too short, so they couldn't compare with the other side. Once Wang Ting took one step forward, he would become the top rune master on Earth. After a round of discussion, everyone was finally convinced by Wang Ting. They started deploying the Black Tortoise Skylock array. The blacksmiths worked on the materials needed for the array and used them to make vessels that could carry runes on them. The large-sized array would be hosted by Wang Ting, so he took the leading role and started commanding the advanced stage and master-level rune masters without any hesitation. In the end, he was the free one. All he did was be an evil supervisor. Boom. While everyone was working hard to build the array, explosions were suddenly heard in the distance. Wang Ting looked into the sky and frowned slightly. "Master Chu, please take a look over there. I've told those people many times, but they must have made a mistake in the rune array again. Their proficiency is so low," Wang Ting said. "All right, I'll go immediately." Chu Yongnian was busy carving a rune, but when he heard Wang Ting's words, he agreed and put down his work. He hurriedly rushed in the direction of the explosion. Wang Ting looked at his work and nodded silently. Among all the rune masters, Chu Yongnian's enlightenment was the highest. He understood what he was saying instantly and was detailed in his work too. He was indeed much better than the rest. Talent was extremely important in both martial arts and runes. Hard work could compensate a little, but without talent, the journey would be tiring. Chu Yongnian had brought 2 disciples along this time. They stayed beside him to assist him. When they saw a young man ordering their master to do his bidding, they were infuriated. One of them said, "Master, Wang Ting's martial arts ability might be strong, but your rune mastery must be better than his. Yet, he threw all the tiring work to you and is just resting over there. This is a little outrageous." "That's right," has also a young man, "but he doesn't know how to respect his elders," Chu Yongnian's other disciple echoed. Chu Yongnian stopped in his tracks. He glanced at them and snorted. "We have all seen his level of rune mastery and are convinced by him. In any field, the best takes the lead. If you're weaker than him, you should accept it humbly and learn. What's more, you don't understand the worth of this array. Rune studies have reached this level after many years of development. However, some high-level rune arrays are still kept a secret by the Xingwu continent. We can't get them at all. However, Wang Ting passed it down to us without any reservation and didn't ask for anything in return. Why are you thinking that he's boasting? Chu Yongnian glanced at the two disciples. They didn't know what to reply to him, so he continued, he's the most familiar with this array. If he did it personally, he'd be able to complete it within 5 days. How much can we learn then? The best way to learn is through a combination of theory and experience. You think he's ordering me around? Rather than having such useless thoughts, why don't you immerse yourself in the array? I'm sure you'll benefit greatly. His tone sounded a little disappointed. After he finished speaking, he ignored the two youngsters and rushed to the area of the explosion. Chu Yongnian's disciples turned red and white in embarrassment. At the same time, they were worried that Chu Yongnian would regard them as unpromising. Their futures would be destroyed. At the same time, a rune master was sitting on the ground absent-mindedly with a dirty face. There was a deep hole in front of him. Old Fang, what's wrong? Chu Yongnian went straight to the point without wasting any time. This isn't right. I followed his instructions clearly. Why did it explode? The rune master called Old Fang muttered to himself, ignoring Chu Yongnian completely. Old Fang, Old Fang. Chu Yongnian shook his head helplessly. Ah, what? Old Chu, aren't you in charge of the center section? Why are you here? Old Fang regained his senses. He was puzzled. You caused an explosion. Shouldn't I come to take a look? Chu Yongnian scolded. All right, tell me what happened. I don't have time to waste on you. Old Fang gave a bitter smile and explained his rune carving process. Chu Yongnian furrowed his brows tightly after hearing him. Based on what you said, there shouldn't be a problem. Why did it explode? He leaned over and observed the rune Old Fang had carved. He tried to guess the problem using the remains of the rune. But the rune was damaged and incomplete, so he couldn't see anything. Old Fang, did you hide some details because you're embarrassed? Chu Yongnian asked curiously. Rune masters were egoistic people. They would rather investigate their mistakes alone than say them out loud and ask for help. This was why Chu Yongnian was suspicious. Bullshit. Wrong means wrong. What's there to hide? Why would I do that? Old Fang was infuriated. Chu Yongnian smiled in embarrassment. They had known each other for many years, so he knew that Old Fang wasn't that kind of person. The two of them could only carve the rune again at the same spot. Half an hour later, boom. Another explosion resounded. This time, Chu Yongnian's face was injured too, but their strength wasn't that weak. A small rune explosion wouldn't hurt them. So, what do you have to say now? Old Fang smiled at this plight. He found an avenue to vent his frustration. Look, it's not my fault. You made a mistake too. What's going on? I honestly don't understand. Chu Yongnian touched his head in confusion. He frowned and racked his brain. Old Fang didn't laugh at him again. He came over and joined him in studying the problem. Occasionally, he would offer his suggestion. They looked like two researchers. Chu Yongnian and Old Fang's disciples could only stay at the side silently. They couldn't offer any help. After some time, they still couldn't get it. Old Fang said helplessly, why don't we ask Wang Ting to take a look? All right, that's the only option left. Chu Yongnian gave up struggling and nodded. Let's go together. Old Fang got up. There's no need to find me. I've been waiting for you for a long time. A voice came from above their heads. It was Wang Ting. Master Wang, please take a look. What's the problem here? Chu Yongnian asked quickly. He was elated. Wang Ting floated in mid-air. With a single glance, he noticed their problem. He replied calmly, your perception is wrong. These runes shouldn't be carved from the first to the last. Instead, you should start from the outside and slowly carved inwards to form an enclosed formation. The core runes should be carved last and linked with the rest. The two people were enlightened. Their eyes lit up with joy as they shouted, I see. So that was it. All right, continue your carving. Wang Ting left after solving their concern. The two rune masters were full of compliments. Master Wang's rune mastery is much higher than ours. This is probably a rune construction method from the Xingwu continent. We have never seen this on Earth, Old Fang said. This rune construction method is their core. There's nothing wrong in admitting it. If we were to do the research ourselves, we wouldn't be able to realize it for many years. Rune studies are too profound and complicated, Chu Yongnian said. Old Fang nodded in agreement. Their disciples stared at them with their mouths agape before glancing in the direction where Wang Teng had left. They had to admit that even though their age was around the same, they couldn't hold a candle to him. Wang Teng seemed free, and he really was. Other people had similar problems like Chu Yongnian. These were all secrets of the Xingwu continent. They had never encountered them before, so they were confused. Wang Teng's job was to solve their problems and enlighten them. These people were the best batch of rune masters. Their understanding of rune studies was no weaker than others, so they could grasp what Wang Ting was trying to say immediately. He didn't need to waste too much saliva. As time passed, the Black Tortoise Skylock array was almost completed. It was at the last stages now. Today, Wang Teng went back to have breakfast with his family before teaching Dudu martial arts on an empty ground. The little fellow practiced the basic fist skill very well. She even made sounds when she punched out her fists as if this would increase her aura. But to others, no matter how hard she screamed, her voice and appearance were always cute. Grandpa Wang and everyone in the Wang family was looking at her with smiles on their faces. They doted on this young girl and didn't discriminate against her just because she didn't have their blood. This little girl had gradually merged into the Wang family. The Shu family, the Bai family, and some other families made some cooperating deals with the Wang family. In summary, they would rely on the Wang family for survival, and the Wang family would provide them with some protection. Wang Teng had no qualms. He was friends with Xu Jie and Bai Wei, so he would offer them help if they needed it. Xu Jie, Bai Wei, and Yu Hao came to look for him too. Wang Teng knew what they were thinking. He didn't say much and asked them not to read into it. They should go back and cultivate properly. He wasn't that narrow-minded. He wouldn't object to some of the ways of the world. Xu Jie and his friends felt relieved when they knew that he wasn't angry. They chatted with one another happily before leaving. The elders of their families had placed high hopes on them. They hoped that they could have some success on this path of martial arts. Of course, they couldn't be compared with Wang Teng, but they must become a martial warrior and play their part for the family. They weren't the only ones. The other younger generations of the other families were in the same boat. As long as they had talent, the families would spend all their resources on the youth to learn martial arts. The sea beasts' riot this time had stimulated everyone. They finally understood that this era would be a martial warriors' era. If they weren't martial warriors, they were nobodies. They couldn't even save themselves. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. All the other families were thinking of ways to let their younger generation step on the martial arts path. Unfortunately, they weren't as lucky as the Shu or Bai families. They were the top-tier families in Donghai and had a good relationship with the Wang family. They were ahead of many other elite families. Many top-tier families knew that Wang Teng was from the Wang family, so they wanted to ride on this big boat. However, they had no avenues. The Wang family weren't charitable people either. If they didn't know them, they wouldn't meet the families. The Zhu family was one of the most powerful families in Donghai. At this moment, they were having a family meeting. The higher authorities of the Zhu family and some recognized young people were all present. The third daughter of the Zhu family, Zhu Baiyun, who was at the gathering on Mount Baoan, was sitting in the first seat on the right-hand side of the family head. The atmosphere was stern. The Zhu family had suffered many losses in this sea beasts riot. All their fixed assets were destroyed. Fortunately, they had many businesses in the country, so their foundation was still there. Even so, the assets of the Zhu family had shrunk by a third. This was a huge blow to them. The grandfather of the Zhu family was sitting in the host seat. He said with a stern face, "Martial warriors are the root of the martial arts era. Although we have groomed some martial warriors over the years, we were still helpless during this sea beasts riot. These younger generations are used to living in peace." Everyone felt awkward. They didn't know what to do either. They had never experienced such a frightening sea beasts riot before. The purpose of them practicing martial arts was to gain status and special benefits. They weren't going to fight for their lives. By right, they weren't wrong. In the peaceful era, these family martial warriors wouldn't need to risk their lives. However, no one expected the riot to happen. The current family head was Zhu Baiyun's father, Zhu Weiqiang. Grandpa Zhu had gone behind the scenes many years ago. Zhu Weiqiang opened his mouth and said, "The martial warriors we groomed have never seen any blood. It's normal that they would get overpowered by the sea beasts. Mph, don't seek excuses for your incompetence. If your foresight was far enough, the Zhu family wouldn't be in this awkward situation." Grandpa Zhu snorted. "Zhu Weiqiang, you didn't think about this too, right?" Zhu Weiqiang felt frustrated. He glanced at Grandpa Zhu, but he didn't dare to voice out his thoughts. Look at the Wang family. They have groomed a top-class martial warrior, a general stage. How many general stage martial warriors are there in the country or the world? During normal times, we don't see their advantage, but their capabilities were displayed during the Sea Beasts riot. The Wang family is going to rise above all, Grandpa Zhu said in envy. The Wang family didn't groom him. Wang Ting's talent is just too powerful. That's why he had his achievements. The Wang family is extremely fortunate to give birth to a phoenix in their chicken nest. Zhu Weiqiang complained in his heart, but he didn't speak out. Grandpa Zhu was in a fit of anger, so he would calm down after venting a bit. If anyone dared to refute, they would be dead. Zhu Weiqiang had realized this over the years. Grandpa, don't scold Dad. Wang Ting's talent is too high. There's only one Wang Ting in the country, no, the world. The other nations might not have anyone who's able to reach the general stage at his age. The youngest general stage martial warrior I've heard of is 30 years old. There's no point in comparing, Zhu Baiyun opened her mouth and said. Grandpa Zhu noticed that his favorite granddaughter had spoken, so his expression softened a little. He sighed and nodded. I understand what you're saying, but the Wang family is in the same city as us. How can I not get jealous? All the elite families in Donghai will be envious when they talk of the Wang family. He paused for a moment to regain his composure. Then, he suddenly thought of something and asked, "Oh right, little Yun, I remember that you have had some interaction with Wang Ting before. What do you know about him?" Before Zhu Baiyun could speak, the young man sitting opposite her said, "Grandpa, little Yun isn't familiar with him. She invited some peers for a gathering when she came back from overseas and Wang Ting happened to be in the group. That's all." "Oh, is that it?" Grandpa Zhu looked at Zhu Baiyun and asked. Zhu Baiyun glanced at the young man opposite before replying, "Second brother is right. We're not close. However, I asked someone to investigate Wang Ting during that gathering, so I know a little about him." "Tell me," Grandpa Zhu urged. Zhu Xiaohui pouted. Zhu Baiyun nodded and continued, "There was an explosion on Mount Baoan and the City Protection Bureau was activated. Do you remember that incident?" "Are you saying?" A glint flashed past Zhu Weiqiang's eyes. "That's right, I suspect that this matter is related to him," Zhu Baiyun said. "What's the link?" "Grandpa is asking you about Wang Ting." "You're not answering the question," Zhu Xiaohui scoffed. Zhu Baiyun ignored him and said, "From some evidence, I can conclude that there were martial warriors on the mountain, and they had a fight. Wang Ting participated in the fight, so I think he was a martial warrior already at that time. He hadn't taken his university entrance exam then," Zhu Weiqiang exclaimed. "That's right. His talent is scary," Zhu Baiyun said. "Isn't that bullshit? How can he become a general stage martial warrior at such a young age if he didn't have talent?" Zhu Xiaohui opened his mouth again. Zhu Baiyun looked at him in disdain. Her second brother was still as stupid as ever. "Shut up." Grandpa Zhu glared at him. Everyone looked at him as if he was an idiot. Zhu Xiaohui felt wronged. He didn't think he had made any mistakes. Why were they looking at him like this? Not only does this show that he's exceptionally talented, but we can also tell that he's good at concealing his ability and is very thoughtful and detailed. Even the City Protection Bureau couldn't find proof that he was related to that case. It's hard for someone like him not to succeed. However, I didn't expect him to rise so quickly, Ju Baiyun exclaimed with a strange look in her eyes. Grandpa Ju nodded thoughtfully. One more thing. Ju Baiyun opened her mouth once again and attracted everyone's attention. There was a gang of robbers who robbed a bank in the past. They got killed by a secretive martial warrior. Are you saying that he did that too? Ju Shaohui clicked his tongue. That's right, it was him. Ju Baiyun nodded firmly. I asked someone to look for information in the police station. Do you know how the robbers died? She left them hanging. Chapter 556 The biggest landlord in Donghai. Satisfied? Satisfied of what? Ju Baiyun was stunned. It was a little hard to answer the question Grandpa Ju had thrown at her abruptly. However, she was a smart person, so she knew what he meant. It was a lie to say that she wasn't satisfied with Wang Ting. This fellow had so many achievements at such a young age. Even more, he was handsome and dashing. Any lady would have thoughts about him. But Ju Baiyun never thought of using her marriage to strengthen her family. Her aim was the family head's position. She wanted to command the Ju family and lead them to a brighter future. This was her original plan. Yes, original. Now, she had seen a bigger world. The Ju family in the past would be constricted in this small and narrow land no matter how smart she was. They couldn't come out of this well. Hence, when Grandpa Ju asked that question, she was moved. Wang Ting could bring her into a bigger world. The other members of the Ju family understood Grandpa Ju's intention too. They were caught a bit unawares. At the same time, some young ladies in the family started to have other thoughts. Their status would soar instantly if they married into the Wang family. But after glancing at Ju Baiyun, they lost their confidence. The other young ladies in the family weren't as smart as her. Not only that, she was more beautiful than them too. It would be tough to fight with her. Ju Baiyun was undeniably the most outstanding younger generation in the Ju family. Even her two elder brothers who were fighting with her for the family head position were weaker than her. If she were a man, her elder brothers wouldn't even have a chance. Still, some people wanted to try their luck. Everyone had different preferences. What if Wang Ting didn't like ladies like Ju Baiyun? They still had a chance. Once they hooked onto Wang Ting, they would surpass the family head's line. It felt good just thinking about it. All of them belonged to the Ju family, but everyone had their little thoughts. Who had never thought of making a counterattack? Ju Weiqiang's eyes lit up. He felt that his daughter had a good chance of succeeding. How amazing it would be to be the father-in-law of a general stage martial warrior. He glanced at Ju Baiyun and kept winking at her. Daughter, go. Ju Shaohui and Ju Baiyun's eldest brother, Ju Shaoan, who had remained quiet all this while, frowned. If she really married Wang Ting and gained such powerful backing, they wouldn't have any chances of being the family head. Wait. They weren't stupid. After some thought, they understood how things would work out. If Ju Baiyun married Wang Ting, she wouldn't care about this small Ju family anymore. Hence, the family head's position would definitely be theirs. Also, she was still part of the Ju family, so they would gain many benefits because of her. Ju Shaohui smiled. Younger sister, you should consider this carefully. Wang Ting is already a general stage martial warrior at his age and has a good relationship with the other formidable warriors like Governor Jiang and the president of Jisin Martial House. Ordinary people can't see them at all, much less know them. His connections are amazing and full of potential. Second brother, you seem eager to see me getting married. Ju Baiyun glanced at him and said calmly. I'm just thinking about your happiness in life. It's hard to find another young, handsome, and talented youth like Wang Ting in the country. You will regret it if you don't grasp the chance, Ju Shaohui shrugged and said. Shaohui is right. Younger sister, you won't find another Wang Ting if you give up this chance, Ju Shaoan smiled and said. All right, let little Yun consider this matter herself. No one will interfere in this. If not, I won't show you mercy, Grandpa Ju waved his hands and said. Everyone rolled their eyes. Aren't you the one who brought it up in the first place? Why are you blaming us for talking too much now? But they didn't say anything in the end. They looked at Ju Baiyun and wondered how she would decide. Ju Baiyun hesitated for a moment. Her gaze flickered before she took a deep breath and shook her head. He has a girlfriend. A girlfriend. Grandpa Ju frowned. Do you know who she is? His high school friend. I heard that their relationship is very good. Ju Baiyun had indeed investigated Wang Teng before. She knew him clearly. She had also investigated Lin Chuhan's background, so she told everyone about her. He's a young man who isn't married, so anything is possible. With your charisma, do you think you will lose to others? Grandpa Ju smiled. What's more, this lady has no background. We can use some other methods to make her give up. If you want, do it. The Ju family will be your strongest shield. Ju Baiyun contemplated for a moment before nodding. She remained quiet. The Black Tortoise Skylock array had reached the final stages. Wang Teng and the other rune masters gathered in the center of Donghai to complete the core of the rune array. The core was the foundation. They would carve the core runes of the Black Tortoise Skylock array here for it to be the backbone of the array. In the future, they would build a force tower here to supply endless energy to the array. That way, the defense array would protect the city round the clock. This was the most crucial step. A small mistake would trigger a chain reaction, and all the efforts they had made over the past few days would go to waste. Everyone's expression turned stern. The core section would be done by Wang Teng personally. The other rune masters had no experience, so they weren't confident. Governor Jiang, Dan Taixian, Yi Jisin, and the other formidable warriors were also present at the scene. They stood around the base and looked at Wang Ting. Wang Ting circled the base on foot before finally stopping in the middle. How is it? Governor Jiang asked agitatedly. No problem. I'll start carving the final core runes now. He disregarded everyone after he finished speaking and took out his rune pen. He started carving on the base. The other rune masters opened their eyes wide as they looked at his movements. They were afraid of missing a single second. What a fast speed. Everyone was astounded. Wang Teng didn't stop at all. The runes appeared smoothly with no mistakes made. They were filled with deep respect for him. So powerful. Was this his true ability? They felt that all the rune knowledge they had learned was useless. Compared to Wang Teng, they had no face to display their knowledge. All of them were extremely careful when they carved the runes, afraid of making any mistakes. They were like primary school students doing math questions. On the other hand, Wang Ting had already jumped out of the student level and became a teacher. He was at a different stage. Comparisons were infuriating. Governor Jiang, Yi Jisin, and the other general stage martial warriors were outsiders, so they couldn't understand anything. However, when they saw the other rune masters' expressions, they knew that Wang Ting's rune mastery was definitely outstanding. Did this fellow start cultivating when he was in his mother's womb? His martial arts were powerful, and his rune mastery was profound. Others had to work hard half their lives or their entire lives to achieve all the things he did in any field. They glanced at one another and were astounded. At the same time, they decided firmly that they would tighten their relationships with Wang Teng. Their relationships were already not bad. With their foundations, many things would be easier for them. With his talent, it wouldn't be easy to pull him over, especially now that he had already matured. Looks like I need to give him some benefits. Force stones. Weapons. Or Dan pills. I don't think he lacks anything. Governor Jiang thought to himself. This fellow has just snatched a huge fortune from the Darkland. I'm envious that he got this opportunity, but he has the ability too. Others might have died after landing in the Darkland. Not only did he escape alive, but he also stole their treasures. Who else has the balls to do this? He has those treasures, so he won't lack resources. What a headache. Governor Jiang glanced at Wang Ting and revealed a helpless expression uncontrollably. Suddenly, he thought of something, and his eyes lit up. I can focus on the Wang family. He won't be able to run away once I tie the Wang family here. Sevihi wasn't the only one thinking about this. Yi Jisin had a similar thought too. Wang Teng was a member of Jisin Martial House, so he wouldn't give up this amazing opportunity. He must keep Wang Teng in Jisin. That way, Jisin would have a general stage martial warrior who was also a master-level rune master, killing two birds with one stone. It was said that Jisin Martial House was one of the top 3 martial arts academies, but he wanted to surpass the other 2 competitors. Who didn't want to be the leader? Wang Ting was getting more and more well-known. Everyone in the country had witnessed his astonishing ability during the Sea Beasts riot. A few days later, his name had spread throughout the country, and everyone was treating him like a hero. If Jisin Martial House could keep him there would be many benefits. At least they could confirm that many people who wanted to learn martial arts would rush to Jisin Martial House. The Sea Beasts riot had ignited a martial arts craze. He received a report from his subordinates, telling him that the number of people signing up in his martial arts academy had increased tremendously these few days. Visit Ria.me for extra chapters. This was a chance. Dan Taixuan's gaze flickered, her mind similarly filled with many thoughts. Wang Teng's growth gave her a strong sense of danger. It was embarrassing for her disciple to surpass her. She was thinking of leaving her position as the chief commander of the Black Sparrow Troop and having a closed-door cultivation session. If she didn't increase her skills to a satisfying level, she wouldn't appear in front of Wang Teng again. It was too embarrassing. Time passed. Half an hour later, the entire city vibrated. Boom. Everyone was startled. Wang Teng was floating in midair, while the runes on the ground seemed to have turned alive. They shimmered brightly and started wriggling. Then, the light spread from the center of the ground and expanded to its surroundings. An invisible force swept past them, raising a gentle gust of wind. No one detected anything, but in the rune master's eyes, the runes carved around Donghai were alive. Almost instantly, an invisible shield rose into the sky and formed an inverted bowl, enclosing Donghai in it. The Black Tortoise Skylock array was a success. With this huge array protecting Donghai, they would be able to resist the attacks of general stage martial warriors. The citizens of Donghai wouldn't need to be in a constant state of anxiety when they lived here in the future. Wang Teng looked at his work of art. It should be everyone's work of art. He heaved a small sigh of relief. Wang Teng, you're helping all the citizens of Donghai. Let me represent everyone to thank you. Governor Jiang bowed to Wang Ting with a stern expression. Wang Ting was a little surprised. As the governor of a city, this bow meant a lot. He said instantly, Governor Jiang, you're too polite. My family is in Donghai, so this isn't just a public affair. I have my personal reasons too. I can't accept this bow. Everyone has their own intentions. It's not easy for you to do this much, Governor Jiang replied. Wang Teng might be thick-skinned, but even he felt a little shy now. Was he honestly so great? He didn't even know. Master Wang, you're too humble. We have been interacting for a few days, so we know who you are. Although you didn't do much over the past few days, we know you're trying to train us. You have always been paying attention to the array. It's to your credit that we can finish this array so quickly. We know everything you've done for us, Chu Yongnian said. Wang Teng was stunned. Was he referring to him? He gave them all the troublesome matters, but they thought he was training them. These people were really kind. Wang Teng didn't say anything. Since this was a beautiful misunderstanding, he would keep it that way. He just felt a little embarrassed. Cough, I suddenly remember that I have something to attend to. I'll leave now. He coughed awkwardly and flew into the sky. Then, he turned and dashed away. Everyone glanced at one another and laughed involuntarily. He was still a young man. The next day, Governor Jiang arrived at the temporary lodging of the Wang family. I came because we didn't arrive at a conclusion last time. He went straight to the point when he saw Wang Teng. Wang Teng was stunned for a second before he reacted and rolled his eyes. Governor Jiang, if you want me to take out my treasures, you don't have to speak anymore. If I say they're isn't. How can I give you anything if I don't have it? Don't be impatient. Listen to my conditions first before you make your decision, Governor Jiang said. Wang Teng glanced at him without replying. But he gave him the chance to continue speaking. Although the government has allocated us the funds, they aren't enough to rebuild Donghai. Hence, I need your help. Governor Jiang stared into Wang Teng's eyes. I won't talk about intangible things. We'll speak of tangible ones. Wang Teng was moved. He remained quiet and waited for the governor to continue. Sly little fox. Governor Jiang complained in his heart. He wouldn't respond unless he saw the benefits. This personality made him helpless. He had no choice but to continue saying, how about this? I will give you an equivalent amount of land for whatever money you give me. You will have the right to use these lands. If you're willing, your family can be the greatest real estate developer in Donghai. Governor Jiang, you're trying to fool me. The right to use can't be given so easily. Wang Ting shook his head and said. After the sea beasts riot, everything is destroyed. Many real estate companies have moved out of Donghai, so we have taken the lands back, Governor Jiang said. Wang Ting went into deep thought. He touched his chin and said, in that case, we'll have to bear a huge risk. There's always a risk if you want to make money, Governor Jiang replied. You will give me an equivalent amount of land no matter how much I give. Wang Ting confirmed again. That's right. As long as you can give, I will agree, Governor Jiang said. Right to use them forever. Wang Teng continued. Forever. Governor Jiang raised his eyebrows. This brat was daring. He hesitated before saying, I can't make the decision. Also, freehold land is not cheap. I can wait, Wang Teng said. All right, I will go back and ask before giving you a reply. Governor Jiang smiled. I know you're not being honest. You're still trying to fool me. Haha. Wang Teng laughed as he started contemplating. Being the biggest landlord in Donghai seemed like a good idea. In the future, his descendants wouldn't have to die from hunger even if there were no outstanding figures among them. They could live off rent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 557 Dead End of the Formidable Warrior. After Governor Jiang left, Wang Teng told Grandpa Wang and his father about the offer. Governor Jiang said that. Wang Shenghua asked in disbelief. Yes. Wang Teng nodded. It looks like the government didn't give many funds this time. If not, he wouldn't keep pestering you. Wang Shenghua frowned. Yes, that is understandable. The implications of the sea beasts' riot are huge. We can foresee the entire nation moving. That will require many human resources and material resources, all of which require a large amount of money to support them. The government won't be able to take care of everything, so Donghai's situation will rely heavily on Governor Jiang alone. Grandpa Wang sat on his chair and spoke slowly as he drank some tea. There must be many star cores and star bones in the corpses of the sea beasts. They can get a sum of money by selling these items. I'm already doing my part by not touching them, Wang Teng said. Grandpa Wang and his father glanced at him with weird expressions. If others had said this, they would believe them. But when Wang Teng said it, they felt that he was a little sly. The 3 Lord-level sea beasts were the biggest catch of the day. He took them, but he still had the face to say these words. What a bad person. Tell me honestly, how many treasures did you snatch? Wang Shenghua asked uncontrollably. He felt helpless too. Although his son was outstanding, he had many tricks up his sleeve. Why didn't he realize that he was a money lover in the past? He wondered who he took after. Not much. Wang Teng sniggered. How much is not much? Wang Shenghua rolled his eyes. I haven't calculated the exact value, but it should be a few thousand trillion. Wang Teng roughly counted his treasures and replied. How much did you say? Wang Shenghua widened his eyes in disbelief. He wondered if he had heard wrong. Grandpa Wang almost pulled his beard, staring at Wang Ting in a daze. The other members of the Wang family around them had the same expression. They looked as though they had seen a ghost. A few thousand trillion. Seriously? I didn't calculate it, so it's approximately this much. Wang Teng said carefully. He didn't dare to say the number again in case everyone got another fright. Especially Grandpa Wang. He was getting old. If he ended up in the hospital from the shock, he would be a sinner. A few thousand trillions? Wang Shengguo was unwilling to accept this ambiguous answer, so he asked again. About there. About there. Wang Teng replied. Everyone knew that he didn't make a mistake since he was still certain of what he said. They looked at one another and saw only astonishment in their eyes. This is too much. Wang Shengguo took a deep breath and gave a bitter smile. Let me digest this. My heart isn't able to handle it. So, our family is the richest family in the nation? Grandpa Wang felt as if this was a dream. He was old and experienced and always composed no matter what happened, but he was still shocked out of his wits at this moment. The top companies in the world were worth a few trillion, but the Wang family had left them in the dust in an instant. How could he not be astounded? Even if the leader of martial arts came, he would be dumbfounded too. We might not be the richest family. There are several secret families in the world. They might be living in seclusion, but their assets are worth over a few thousand trillion. Wang Ting shook his head. He didn't get arrogant. The more powerful he became, the greater his outlook was. That's right. This is the martial arts era. There are many things outside our expectations. Grandpa Wang smiled at himself mockingly. Are you going to fork out the money? Wang Shengguo asked. I'll definitely give the money. In the past, I've said that we might be helping Governor Jiang solve his problem, but simultaneously, this is our chance. However, we need to see what benefits he can provide us. I want to gain connections with the higher authorities using this chance and create a Dan, weapons, and rune vessels industrial chain for the Wang family. We need Governor Jiang's support if we want to do this, Wang Teng said slowly. A sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Also, Donghai's geographical location is strategic. It's linked to all the ports in the nation and is the hub of communication of the country. This is a resource distribution center. Without the sea beasts' riot, we wouldn't have been able to get hold of the land here so easily. Wang Teng paused for a moment and looked at everyone digesting his words. He smiled and continued, many families and companies are moving out of Donghai, while some others are still contemplating. They are playing the waiting game. Once this period is over and they grasp the situation, many real business giants will enter Donghai. At that time, our advantage will be gone. Why don't we be more decisive now and strike first? The first one to act will have the largest piece of cake. Everyone finally understood what Wang Teng wanted to do. Astonishment filled up their eyes. They didn't know that Wang Teng's ambition was this huge. Grandpa Wang and Wang Shenghong were experienced businessmen, so they understood Wang Teng's intention at once. With Donghai as their base, he wanted to create a business empire that would influence the entire nation. Wang Shengguo, Wang Shenghong, and many others could foresee the amazing future. They started to get excited. Grandpa Wang looked at Wang Ting in satisfaction. Although his grandson was a little too outstanding, he was still his grandson. Hence, it was a good thing. He said, since you have a plan, do it. The entire family will help you. Wang Shenghong, Wang Shengguo, Wang Shenjun, and Fang Junming were the backbone of the Wang family. They all felt restless and excited now. They looked at Wang Ting with an intense gaze, hoping that he would agree to Governor Jiang immediately and give them a chance to display their capabilities. Wang Ting was caught between laughter and tears. All these were just words. It would take a long time if they wanted to execute it. He didn't expect Grandpa Wang to be so excited. Don't be impatient. What will come will come. If Governor Jiang wants to get a large sum of funds, I'm the best choice. The other families might be wealthy, but they won't be able to provide so many liquid assets immediately, Wang Ting smiled confidently. Grandpa Wang nodded. After pondering for a moment, he knew that Wang Ting was speaking the truth. This was quite certain. After they finished discussing, they planned to leave. At this moment, Dan Taixian came. Wang Ting was surprised. I wonder why she came to look for me now. Don't make her wait too long, Grandpa Wang urged. Okay. Wang Ting nodded and left. Seeing Dan Taixian, who was standing not far away, Wang Ting greeted her instantly. "Master. Come with me. Someone wants to see you," Dan Taixian said after she turned and nodded at him. "See me? Who?" Wang Ting asked curiously. "You'll know once you go." Dan Taixian rose into the air. Wang Ting shook his head and followed her. The two of them came to Huanghai Military Academy in the blink of an eye. They went straight to the instructor dormitory. He was extremely familiar with Huanghai Military Academy, but Dan Taixian brought him to a place he had never been to before. This was a simple and crude wood house situated in the depth of the instructor dormitory. There were trees all around covering the wooden house. It was secluded and quiet. "This place is..." Wang Ting looked at Dan Taixian curiously. Dan Taixian didn't reply to him. She brought him to the door and knocked on it lightly. "Cough, come in." After a cough, a familiar voice came out. "Old Han." Wang Ting remembered the voice. He finally knew who Dan Taixian brought him to visit. Speaking about it, this was a boss-level character. He held back the windstorm giant ape alone during the sea beasts riot. He might have lost in the end, but he was injured, to begin with. If he wasn't, he might have won. Wang Ting listened to his coughing and frowned uncontrollably. This old man's injury seemed quite serious. Dan Taixian pushed the door and entered. Wang Ting entered the wooden house after her. The interior was a little dim. He scanned the surroundings and felt a little dumbfounded. This house was too simple and crude. Besides some simple furniture and appliances, there was nothing. It was hard to believe that a formidable warrior lived here. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Wang Ting didn't place much attention on the decor. His gaze quickly landed on the old man lying on the bed in the corner. He squinted when he noticed the old man's state. It had only been a few days, but there was a great change in his appearance. His hair had turned white, and his face was full of wrinkles. Moreover, his body had gotten thinner, with his back bending lower. Using his spiritual sight, Wang Ting could see an extremely thick death aura around him. How did he become like this? Wang Ting was shocked. Even he couldn't accept it when he saw a formidable warrior deteriorating to a normal old man. "You're here," LD Han said in a hoarse voice. His muddy eyes lit up a little. Dan Taixian and Wang Ting remained quiet. They walked closer and silently stared at the old man on the bed. They didn't know what to say. Accept the situation. I'm getting old and should have returned to the earth a long time ago. There's nothing I can't accept. Old Han smiled slightly. He seemed to be recalling the past. 30 years ago, I was in the first batch of people to become martial warriors. I was lucky. I stepped on this path when I was 43 years old. Many people looked down on me, but I got all the way here. Haha, to think that most of the old fellows are buried in the ground now. They probably didn't expect me to walk the furthest. They said that I was too old and that talent will decide one's achievements, but I destroyed all these beliefs. My life is worth it. Old Han wasn't speaking to the two people in front of him. His gaze had floated away into the depth of his memory. He seemed to be speaking to himself and his peers who had passed away. Wang Ting didn't know that this old man had a legendary life. Times would create a hero. He was the hero of his time, the pioneer of all martial warriors. Based on his ability, he should be enjoying his old age in peace. He would continue being an ordinary guard of Huanghai Military Academy and watch the students grow. Then, he would slowly finish the last of his journey. He shouldn't be lying on the bed and waiting to die while reminiscing the past. But when Donghai was in a crisis, he still stood out without fear. Even though he knew that he wouldn't be able to suppress his old injuries anymore if he acted, even though he knew that he would end up in this state, he didn't hesitate. Wang Ting respected him. However, he could detect a hint of regret in Old Han's voice. He said that his life was worth it, but he had paid a huge price to reach this stage only to stop here. Anyone would feel regret. Wang Ting didn't want this old man to die like this. He didn't say anything and sat down beside the bed. Stretching out his hand, he placed his fingers on Old Han's wrist. Dan Taixian and Old Han were slightly stunned. Don't waste your effort. Many doctors and alchemists have come to take a look. My time is here. There's nothing you can do. Old Han shook his head and said with a calm smile. His voice was composed as if he wasn't talking about himself. No harm taking a look, Wang Teng replied ambiguously. He pushed his spiritual power into Old Han's body and inspected his condition slowly. Old Han didn't stop him. He didn't have the power to stop him anyway. He was really at the end of his life. After giving him a checkup, Wang Ting locked his brows in a tight frown. Old Han was like a candle flickering in the wind, old and ailing. All the old injuries accumulated in his body had relapsed at once. His body was like a sieve, full of holes. Old Han saw his expression and smiled once again. You don't have to feel sad. Many master alchemists looked at my body and couldn't do anything about it, much less you. Cough. Before he could finish, he started coughing violently. Blood dripped down the edge of his lips. Don't speak. I haven't even opened my mouth. Why are you so impatient? Wang Teng replied in frustration. He didn't care about being polite. Wang Ting. Dan Taishen scolded him when she noticed how rude he was. It's all right. I like this fellow's personality. This is the personality an unrivaled talent should have. Old Han didn't mind. Wang Teng rolled his eyes. Who wants you to like me? Why would an old man like you like me? So scary. He hesitated for a moment before finally saying, actually, you might still have some hope. What? Dan Taishen was astounded. She frowned. Wang Ting, this isn't a joke. Don't talk nonsense. When did you see me spouting nonsense? Wang Ting looked at her and asked. Dan Taishen was stunned. She thought about it and realized that he was telling the truth. This fellow might be a little unreliable at times, but at the crucial moment, he would never disappoint. Did he really have a way? You have a cure? Old Han asked unconsciously. He was stunned for a moment after hearing Wang Ting's resolute tone. I can only help you control your injury for the moment. If you want to heal completely, you'll need some time. Wang Ting nodded and replied. Have you learned medicine before? Old Han hesitated before asking. No, I'm a master alchemist. Wang Ting glanced at him and smiled. Master alchemist? Dan Taishen and Old Han were flabbergasted. Wang Ting was an alchemist and a master level at that. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 558. A huge gif. Master Alchemist. It could be said that it was the highest alchemist rank here on Earth, equivalent to a saint in the medical world. These saints would study medicine for their whole lives before they could gradually attain perfection and be at the pinnacle of the medical world. By then, they would be at least 50 years old. It was the same for alchemists. Even though the Force had entered Earth for 30 years, only around a dozen master alchemists had emerged, but they were not young. Subsequently, there were no other alchemists that had reached the ranks of a master. Even the prodigies who were well known throughout the country could only become advanced stage alchemists. If they wanted to be a master, they would require much more experience. A master alchemist was still much inferior to the master alchemists in the Xingwu continent. It was the same for a rune master. That was the gap between the two worlds. And now Wang Teng claimed that he was a master alchemist. Would anyone believe that he was a 20-year-old master alchemist? But Dan Taishen knew that Wang Ting would not be fooling around. He might be cheeky, but he knew his priorities. All sorts of complicated thoughts were flowing through Dan Taixuan's mind. Wasn't he a rune master? Why was he now a master alchemist? Who taught him that? She couldn't help asking, did you get an alchemist grandmaster in the Xingwu continent to teach you? Why would you think that? Wang Ting gave her a strange look and asked. Otherwise, how did you reach the master stage? Don't tell me you learned it on your own. Dan Taishen didn't believe he was that talented. Honestly speaking, I learned it on my own, Wang Teng replied. Dan Taishen looked at Wang Teng as if he was teasing her. Old Han heard their conversation and became anxious. Could these two youngsters consider this old man's feelings? Was it the time to discuss how Wang Teng became an alchemist master? His life and death was the most important thing now. He cleared his throat and asked weakly, Wang Ting, can you heal internal injuries? Old Han, weren't you reminiscing and preparing to die just now? Wang Teng was amused. What do you young people know? No one would want to die if they had the choice. I haven't lived long enough. Old Han's pale face became red as he grunted in anger. Wang Teng laughed out loud. Old Han was an interesting person. He didn't have the attitude of a formidable warrior and was extremely easygoing. Dan Taixian wanted to laugh too but managed to hold it back. She still had to have some respect for him. After all, Wang Teng and she were different. Wang Ting also got serious and nodded. Everything I said is true. All right, I will hand my life over to you then. Old Han was decisive and didn't question Wang Teng's ability. As long as he had something, he would let Wang Teng try it. He was already in such a condition, he had to make a Hail Mary effort. Wang Teng looked at his attributes panel with a calm face. Alchemist, 888-1000, advanced stage. Without a doubt, he was just a bit away from reaching the master stage. But he didn't back down and steeled his resolve. He knew that there was some rare healing medicine that would have great healing effects when paired together. It would be enough to stabilize Old Han's injury. As for solving Old Han's problem from the roots, that would have to wait till he reached the Grandmaster stage. Only then could he cultivate better healing medicine and spiritual Dan that could boost his vitality. Even in the Xingwu continent, not many people knew about a spiritual Dan like that, and it would only be in the hands of a few people. The alchemists on Earth would not have been able to obtain these healing medicine, but he could get them by picking up attribute bubbles. He would have to wait till he reached the Grandmaster stage and head to the Xingwu continent to learn from the alchemist Grandmasters when in fact, he would be farming them. That was why Wang Ting wasn't afraid. As these thoughts flashed past his mind, he said calmly, I need some ingredients. Say it. I'll get someone to prepare them, Dan Taixian said with a serious expression. Purple figwort, silver leafgrass, 9-section worm embryos, black gastrodia. Wang Teng didn't hold back and listed all the ingredients for the primary blood recovery Dan and purple jade spirit bone cream. One for the internal injuries, while one for the outer. With both of them working together, although there wouldn't be instant results, it would at least be enough to control Old Han's condition. Dan Taixian noted them down with a calm expression. She didn't know anything about these herbs, but it didn't matter as she could just get someone else to buy them. Both of them didn't stay any longer and left. Before leaving, Wang Teng glanced at Old Han's residence and became a little emotional. He really was a hidden master. Back at the temporary residence of the Wang family, Wang Teng thought about it and planned to find Lin Chuhan. Lin Chuhan's house was also wrecked by the sea beasts, and they were living in the temporary residences. Furthermore, they were living just beside the Wang family. Li Xiumei really treated Lin Chuhan as her daughter-in-law. She also knew that her family situation wasn't very good and took good care of her. Many people knew that Wang Teng was from the Wang family, and they were very respectful in trivial matters. Everyone would accommodate the Wang family even without his presence. That was why having Lin Chuhan's family arranged next to the Wang family was just a matter of saying one sentence. Of course, it was different for other people. For them to get better treatment, they might not even get it even if they went around begging for help. EVCO just as Wang Ting had reached Lin family's place, he saw Lin Chuhan sending off a woman. He showed a surprised face. Why did she look familiar? The woman also saw Wang Teng and turned to glance at him. She then left after saying something to Lin Chuhan. Wang Teng couldn't remember who she was. He never cared to remember people who he didn't care too much about. However, someone he wasn't quite familiar with had suddenly appeared beside Lin Chuhan. He walked up and asked her, "Who was that?" "A new friend. She helped me a lot," Lin Chuhan explained. Wang Teng didn't probe further. If she were a guy, he would have cared a lot more. "Why is a busy man like you here?" Lin Chuhan asked. "I think I hear some resentment from you." Wang Teng chuckled. "What resentment?" No, not from me. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. Her pretty face still had a cold expression as she turned around and walked into the house. Wang Teng smiled. Actually, I didn't come here to see you. I came here to see someone's cultivation progress and give some pointers. After all, someone's too weak. Lin Chuhan's face immediately turned black. Too weak. You're the one who's a monster. You should blame yourself for leaving everyone else in the dust. She stopped abruptly and turned to glare at Wang Teng. However, in an instant, his face was in front of hers, and his breath puffed directly on her face. The warm air heated her face rapidly, her cheeks turning red. Lin Chuhan suddenly retreated like a frightened little rabbit. However, she was too hasty and tripped and fell backward. Such a familiar scene. In the past, Wang Teng almost made her stumble along the corridor when she was in high school. Wait, she did fall at that time. The same thing was happening again. This bastard. These thoughts flashed past Lin Chuhan's mind in an instant. However, she wasn't the helpless young lady anymore. Her movements were faster and more agile. This small accident wasn't a problem at all. She reacted quickly and tapped her feet on the ground, stabilizing herself. However, someone was faster than her. How could Wang Teng give up this great chance? The next instant, he stepped forward and hugged Lin Chuhan's waist. He leaned close to her and smiled. Why are you so clumsy? Fortunately, you have me, or you would have fallen to the ground. Of course, with our relationship, there's no need to thank me. Lin Chuhan couldn't stand his shamelessness. She pushed him away and glared at him in anger and embarrassment. Can you be more decent? Wang Teng chuckled and stopped teasing her. He turned serious and said, Come, let's go to your room. What do you want to do? Lin Chuhan stared at him vigilantly. Wang Teng, he swore that he wasn't thinking about anything. To guide you in your cultivation, Wang Teng said helplessly. He stepped past her and walked into the room. Lin Chuhan was a little puzzled, but she still followed him. Mother Lin greeted him enthusiastically when she saw him. Wang Teng is here. Have your lunch here. I will make some delicious food for you. Okay. It has been a while since I have had your cooking, Wang Teng smiled and said. The temporary lodging wasn't big, so Lin Chuxia heard the commotion too. She ran out of her room. Brother Wang Ting. Chuxia, how's your cultivation recently? Wang Ting rubbed her black hair and asked. I'm already at the 3-star soldier level. I'm stronger than my older sister, haha. Lin Chuxia smiled proudly. Also, my gun kung fu is better than before. I heard my sister's instructor saying that I'm already at the small achievement stage. I noticed it from your performance during the war. Your gun kung fu is indeed at the small achievement stage. Wang Teng nodded. He smiled and continued, It looks like your talent is not bad. Am I better than my sister? Lin Chuxia asked happily. That's right, you're more powerful than your sister, Wang Teng replied. Enough with you two. Why are you talking to each other as if I'm not present? Lin Chuhan was speechless. She didn't mind it when Wang Ting teased her, but even her younger sister had joined him now. Who could bear this frustration? Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Mother Lin was happy to see the three of them fooling around with one another. She smiled and said, You youngsters can chat among yourselves. I'll start cooking. She walked into the kitchen and left the space to these three kids. Let's go. I'll talk to you about cultivation. Chuxia, you can come along, Wang Ting said. All right, I have many questions too. Lin Chuxia grabbed Wang Ting's arm happily and pulled him into her room. Come to my room, come to my room. Lin Chuhan didn't think that Lin Chuxia would be so direct. However, when she saw them entering the room, she could only grit her teeth and follow them. Wang Ting sat down cross-legged on the ground. The two sisters sat down opposite him. He contemplated for a moment before opening his mouth. Your situations are different, so I will explain one by one. Chuhan, you're a wood element martial warrior and cultivate wood force. What scripture are you learning now? I used my school credits to exchange for a yellow rank high-class scripture, the green spiritual scripture. Lin Chuhan didn't hide it. Yellow rank high class. Wang Teng was surprised. A normal student will at most be able to get a yellow rank middle-class scripture. How did you manage to exchange for a high-class one? Lin Chuhan stretched her fair neck and snorted. I have some talent in alchemy, and my memory is not bad. When I go on missions, I help the instructors from the Dan faculty to get some herbs and earn many school credits from this. Those instructors from the Dan faculty are rich, so they are more generous. So you got a side hustle. Wang Teng smiled. At the same time, he was a little surprised. Lin Chuhan was talented in alchemy. This wasn't something he was expecting. Having a talent was a good thing. He would see how strong her talent was before deciding how to groom her. I'm not stupid. School credits are easier to earn. It's a benefit given to martial arts students by the country. Once we go out of school, there won't be another chance like this. I have to grab it, Lin Chuhan said. Wang Teng agreed with her entirely. She was right. However, many people didn't have this enlightenment. Some students only knew how to cultivate in school and rarely spent time thinking about how to earn more school credits. By the time they remembered that they had to do it, they were at a disadvantage. Compared to the students who were already earning school credits, they needed to work extra hard. Some of them might not even have realized this. Yellow rank high class is better than most ordinary students, but there are still people practicing dark level and earth level scriptures, Wang Teng said. You make it sound so easy. Dark level. Earth level. I might not be able to accumulate enough school credits to buy those scriptures in my 4 years in university, Lin Chuhan replied angrily. This is what I wanted to tell you. Wang Ting gave a mysterious smile. He waved his hand and said, come closer. What? Lin Chuhan looked at him in frustration. Come and you will know, Wang Ting said. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes at him and leaned over. Wang Ting lifted his forefinger and tapped the middle of her forehead. This is. Lin Chuhan was shocked. Focus and receive it, Wang Ting ordered softly. Lin Chuhan understood and hurriedly followed his instructions. She felt a memory surging into her mind. After some time, Wang Teng retracted his finger, and Lin Chuhan opened her eyes. Skyrank scripture? She stared at Wang Teng in bewilderment. That's right, I just passed a Skyrank wood element scripture to you, Wang Teng replied calmly. It's too valuable. Lin Chuhan took a deep breath. She never expected Wang Ting to pass her such an invaluable Skyrank scripture. It might be valuable to you, but it's just something I can obtain easily. You don't have to worry about taking it, Wang Ting smiled gently and said. Lin Chuhan didn't believe him at all. Was a Skyrank scripture something you could obtain easily? Wang Ting must be boasting again, but she understood he was saying this to make her feel at ease about taking it. Suddenly, Lin Chuhan felt a little touched. He gave her such a precious item. Who else would do this? Her gaze turned extremely gentle as she looked at Wang Ting. Cough, don't look at me like that. It's scary. Wang Ting felt his hair standing because of her gaze. Why did she suddenly look at him so gently for no reason? The gentleness in Lin Chuhan's eyes disappeared without a trace. She took a deep breath, feeling as if she was ogling at a blind man. No, she wasn't ogling. Wang Ting heaved a sigh of relief when she resumed her cold aura. He nodded and said, that's the right way. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. Don't think too much. Take it as a present. This is my first present to you, so it can't be too lousy, right? Wang Ting smiled. Lin Chuhan gritted her teeth. She didn't reject him anymore. Practice this scripture and raise your ability quickly. Wang Ting turned serious. Also, don't tell others. It will put you in danger. You should understand that wealth can cause disasters. Lin Chuhan nodded firmly. She knew that if others found out she possessed a Skyrank scripture, it would cause her unnecessary troubles. Brother Wang Ting, my older sister has a gift, so where's mine? Lin Chuxia asked. She refused to be left out. Okay, you have one too. Wang Ting hesitated for a moment and took out an item from his space ring. This black snake poisonous ginseng is a rare poison element spiritual herb. After refining, it will help in your cultivation and your poison force. However, It's still better to make dans with it. I'll pass them to you after I make them, okay? Lin Chuxia had no objections. She just wanted a present and didn't care what it was. She nodded happily and said, okay. Then, Wang Ting pointed out the problems in their battle techniques and cultivation. These two ladies were talented people, so they understood what Wang Ting was saying at once. Not much time was needed to explain the details to them. As for your alchemy talent, I think there's no need to hurry. We'll take it one step at a time. Once we lay the foundations right, you will have an easy time afterward, Wang Ting said to Lin Chuhan at the end. Lin Chuhan nodded. The instructors of the Dan faculty said this frequently too. But when Wang Ting said it, she found it a little strange. Wang Ting also taught Lin Chuhan some ways to study alchemy. She was still in the accumulating knowledge stage, so there was nothing much to say. Strength is the main thing. We are in troubled times. You need to raise your combat prowess quickly. I can't be with you all the time, Wang Ting lamented. Don't treat us like kids. Lin Chuhan glanced at him. We might not be as outstanding as you, but we're not bad either. Yes, not bad. Wang Ting smiled. In the afternoon, Mother Lin called them for lunch. Wang Ting left the Lin family afterward. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 559. That person wants to see you. After leaving the Lin family, Wang Ting went back to the Wang family's base. Li Xiumei wasn't angry that he didn't eat lunch at home. On the other hand, she was elated. He didn't hide his whereabouts, so she knew that he was at Lin Chuhan's. Son, all the best. Li Xiumei gave him a meaningful gaze and walked away. Wang Ting shook his head. Since last year, Li Xiumei had been urging him to get married earlier. When he didn't have a girlfriend, she would rush him to find one. Now that he had one, she might hurry him to get married and have children. He would just pretend to listen and agree. He didn't plan to get married so early or become an emotionless child creator. These adults were atrocious. He would wait until he reached the highest level before having a child. Wang Ting raised his head and puffed up his chest. He walked into the house and started cultivating. Governor Jiang finally came for him again. Of course, it was regarding the same matter. When they met, the other members of the Wang family were present too. After serving tea, Wang Ting asked Governor Jiang to have some first. Then, he smiled and said, Governor Jiang, if you had come a few days later, I might have gone to the Xingwu continent. How is it? Do you have an answer now? Governor Jiang tensed up. He cursed Wang Ting for being too sly. He didn't know if his words were true, but since he needed Wang Ting's help, he couldn't disregard him. If he really ran away, all he could do was cry. He glanced at Wang Ting and said calmly, I can represent the higher authorities to accept your freehold criteria. The other members of the Wang family were elated. If the higher authorities agreed on giving them freehold land, it was equivalent to bestowing it to them. With this foundation, it was hard for the Wang family not to prosper. But, Governor Jiang scanned everyone's expression and noticed Wang Ting's calm face. He raised his eyebrows uncontrollably. This fellow was good at keeping his composure. But what? Governor Jiang, you can be direct. Cooperation is built on trust. There's no point for you to keep beating around the bush to find our bottom line, Wang Ting replied calmly. Grandpa Wang and the others regained their composure and turned serious. They scolded themselves for getting blinded by this huge surprise. Based on current city planning for the new Donghai, we will simplify the regional division and segregate the city into 9 sections, 3 sections in the center, 3 in the inner circle, and 3 in the outer circle. According to the higher authorities, your family can have a limit of 50 square kilometers of freehold land, but it can't be all in the center. You can only have a total of 10 square kilometers in the center. Of course, this will depend on how much funds you have, Governor Jiang said slowly. The calm emotions of the Wang family were ignited once again. The entire Donghai was more than 600 square kilometers. In the past, 50 square kilometers was the size of a small administrative district. The higher authorities were so generous, but in the end, it was still up to Wang Teng. Everyone's gaze landed on him. They were stunned. Wang Ting was still calm. There were no emotions in his eyes. The Wang family smiled bitterly. Strength decided your horizon. At Wang Ting's level, he wasn't looking at this small Donghai anymore. No wonder he could treat it so calmly. Governor Jiang noticed this too and was a little shocked. He gave up his thought of trying to play dumb. This fellow wasn't easy to fool. He was afraid that he would come up empty-handed if he continued with his tricks. That wouldn't be worth it. Wang Ting took a sip of the tea and smiled slowly. That's not enough. I want 80 square kilometers of land, with 20 in the center region. The Wang family gasped. They were astounded by Wang Ting's words. He asked for 30 more square kilometers. Wang Ting was indeed daring. If it was them, they wouldn't dare to do this. That's impossible. Governor Jiang's expression changed. He shook his head fervently and said, "This is daylight robbery. It's already an exception for us to give you freehold land, but you still want to bargain for more. That's not right. You're the one asking me to buy. I don't have to buy anything," Wang Teng replied calmly. Governor Jiang had nothing to say. He felt extremely frustrated. The one asking for help was always at a disadvantage. He was the governor of a city, yet he couldn't do anything to this young lad. Who could he complain to? All right. He looked at Wang Ting's expression and knew that he had to take a step back. He sighed in his heart and continued, 80 is impossible. 65 is the limit with 15 in the city. Nothing more than that. Deal. Wang Ting's expression changed, and he stretched out his hand with a smile. Governor Jiang felt that he got fooled. Was his calm expression fake? Why did he agree so readily? This young fellow was a cunning one. He should have pushed down the numbers more, but it was too late now. He couldn't take back his words. Do you even have enough money? Governor Jiang retorted, not raising his hand. You don't have to worry about that. Just give me the right to use the land based on how much I have, Wang Teng said. Also, we should sign the contract as soon as possible. I'll let the Wang family be in charge of this in the future. Governor Jiang was exasperated. He didn't want to talk to Wang Teng anymore and took out the contract. The area of freehold land he promised was written on it. He pushed it in front of Wang Teng and said, "Sign it." Wang Teng took the contract. After giving it a quick scan, he signed his name without any hesitation. There were 2 copies of the contract, one for each party. Governor Jiang kept the one for him and said, "Prepare the money quickly. I'm in a rush to use it." Wang Teng nodded. He asked, "Will the government buy gems and force stones?" "As many as you have." Governor Jiang glanced at him and said confidently, "Let's go. I need to convert what I have into cash. If not, I don't have the money," Wang Teng said. "Go where? Do you think Donghai has money to give you now? If you want to get cash, go to other cities. If you need a large sum, I suggest you head to capital Xia. They can give you everything at once," Governor Jiang said. "You're right. I'll go to capital Xia then," Wang Teng contemplated and replied. "Take care of this yourself. I just want to see money as soon as possible." Governor Jiang paused for a moment before adding, "Recently, there's news that the one from capital Xia wants to see you. Prepare yourself." "The one from capital Xia wants to see me?" Wang Teng was dumbstruck. This piece of news was a mega bomb. Even he found it unbelievable. He asked, "Why does he want to see me? How will I know?" Governor Jiang left after throwing this sentence down. The Wang family was shaken as they stared at Wang Ting speechlessly. This piece of news astounded them too. It wasn't hard to guess what that person was. Wang Ting had already reached that level. This was unbelievable. If that person really calls for you, you have to be vigilant. Don't say the wrong things, Grandpa Wang reminded him with a forced smile. Wang Ting didn't know what to say. Did they think that he was that kind of person? He glanced around him. Everyone had the same expression. He felt that his mature and prudent image had crumbled. Wang Teng wasn't certain if this piece of news was real, but when Dan Taixian brought it to him again, he had to believe it. Follow me to capital Xia tomorrow. The leader of martial arts wants to see you, Dan Taixian said. He really wants to see me? Why? Wang Teng asked. I don't know. Dan Taixian shook her head. It's not a bad thing. Do you think someone with that position will harm you? You might have caught his attention because of your outstanding performance this time. It's not strange that he wanted to meet you. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Wang Teng nodded. He kept quiet. I've brought all the spiritual herbs you need. Let's make the healing medicine for Old Han first. Dan Taixian changed the topic. Okay. The two of them went straight to the furnace room in Huanghai Military Academy. The Dan faculty was Kui Heng's territory. Hence, when they arrived, he was alerted. Principal, Wang Ting, why are you here? Kui Heng hurried up and asked. Old Kui, prepare a furnace room. Wang Teng is going to make Old Han's medicine, Dan Taixian said directly. Recently, many alchemists had gathered in Donghai to make dans for the martial warriors who got hurt during the Sea Beasts riot. The constructions in Donghai were mostly destroyed, but some of the buildings in martial arts universities were standing because their defensive ability was a bit better. However, there was a limited number of furnace rooms, and the alchemists from all over the nation were occupying them. Didn't everyone who saw Old Han say there's no way to treat him? Kui Heng was stunned. He exclaimed, wait, did you say that Wang Ting is going to make medicine? He looked at Wang Ting curiously. Wang Ting has already reached the master level. Dan Taixian glanced at Wang Ting and said, Master level? Kui Heng staggered, laughing awkwardly in disbelief. Principal, are you joking with me? I'm not. He said that he's at the master level unless he lied to me. Dan Taixian gave an unconcerned look. Wang Ting was speechless, staring at her in frustration. Wang Ting, this isn't a joke. I know that your alchemy talent isn't bad, but, although Kui Heng didn't say it explicitly, he obviously didn't believe that Wang Ting was a master alchemist. This was too hard to believe. He knew from Situ Yun that Wang Ting's rune mastery was very high. It had reached the master level. But this made it harder for him to believe that Wang Ting's alchemy mastery had reached a similar level. No human could be so talented. Head Kui, you have to let me try before you can know, Wang Ting smiled and said nonchalantly. Why don't you understand? Kui Heng was agitated. Wang Ting was famous and young. Many people admired him, but many were jealous too. In the past, many master alchemists had already seen Old Han's injury and opined that it couldn't be cured. If Wang Ting came out and said that he could treat it, he was indirectly saying that they were all useless. It was all right if he treated Old Han. He could shut people's mouths with that. However, if he failed, those envious people would use it against him and say that he was too full of himself. Wang Ting saw through his thoughts and said, Head Kui, don't worry. I'm confident. Oh, did you say you're confident that you can treat Old Han? A voice was heard suddenly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 560. He healed him. Everyone looked over and saw a group of people walking towards them. Amongst them was an old man who had just left a furnace room and had heard their conversation. His gaze landed on Wang Ting. Master Chen, Kui Heng greeted him. Young people are always more confident in themselves. Wang Ting has the best of intentions. Intentions are intentions but don't fool around. Old Han's situation is not optimistic. A little carelessness will aggravate his injury and might even shorten his remaining lifespan. Master Chen said, besides, we have not given up. We've been looking through books and records, trying to find a way to heal him. He is just causing trouble by interfering now. Kui Heng looked a little uncomfortable. Chen Ruifan's words were too harsh. Trouble? He didn't even know whether Wang Ting would be able to heal him and decided to throw the baby out with the bathwater while chastising him. Wang Ting sneered. Master Chen, you sound as though I can't heal old Han. You're young. Have you memorized the thousands of medicinal herbs? How far is your progress in alchemy? You dare say you can heal old Han? Didn't your teacher tell you that alchemy requires the utmost caution? Master Chen frowned and rebuked. Since when was alchemy based on age? Wang Ting looked at him and responded indifferently. Forget about being a master alchemist. Of all the alchemists in the country, not one has managed to reach the advanced stage without 10 or 20 years of experience. You sure talk big for someone your age. Master Chen reprimanded him again. People like you haven't learned enough, yet you blame others for being too good. I think you have wasted your years of learning alchemy. If you can't heal him, then that's it. What's your motive for coming up with a bunch of excuses and trying to obstruct someone when he says he can do it? Wang Ting wasn't going to back down either. It wasn't that he was looking down on the alchemists on Earth. There was nothing to say about the disparity in abilities, but this Master Chen was just flaunting his seniority, acting as though he might be bullied and pushed around if he didn't speak. You. Chen Ruifan was so angry that his face turned green. A young man standing beside him saw that his teacher was being humiliated and stood up for him after some hesitation. Wang Teng, I know that your strength has reached the general stage and that no one in the younger generation can match up to you. But alchemy-wise, my teacher has spent many years reaching the master level and is already amongst the best on Earth. He is still considered your senior. You're going too far by insulting him like this. Your teacher ran over to scold me for no reason. Is that what a senior should do? Wang Teng glanced at him and questioned disdainfully. There's no need to say more. I do want to see what kind of healing medicine you can come up with. Chen Ruifan's expression was uncomfortable as he scoffed. You don't know what you're saying. Wang Teng glanced at him calmly and stopped caring about him anymore. He looked at Kui Heng. Head Kui, I can use the furnace room, right? There was nothing else Kui Heng could say now that things had turned out this way. Sighing, he nodded his head. Wang Ting then walked straight into the furnace room. Chen Ruifan and the others didn't leave and started waiting on one side. Kui Heng approached Dan Taixian and asked softly, Principal, is Wang Ting really confident? Do you think he is the kind of person who speaks without thinking? Dan Taixian was calm as she glanced at him and responded with a question. Well, Kui Heng understood what Dan Taixian meant, but he still felt incredible. He couldn't help but keep looking at the furnace room. Inside the furnace room, Wang Teng didn't take that Master Chen to heart. His gaze swept across the room, and he murmured under his breath. His spiritual power swept across the room, and a few attribute bubbles that were scattered in the furnace room flew towards him. These attribute bubbles were dropped when Master Chen was making medicine. That was going to help him. Alchemy *30 Spiritual Realm Enlightenment *10 Alchemy *50 Alchemy *20 After picking up the attribute bubbles in the furnace room, there was a gleam in Wang Teng's eyes. His spiritual power swept through the surrounding furnace rooms. Sure enough, a bunch of attribute bubbles passed through the walls and gathered in the furnace room where Wang Teng was at. Alchemy *50 Alchemy *60 Spirit *85 Alchemy *45 Spiritual Realm Enlightenment *10 Alchemy *15 Emperor Realm Spirit *16 Alchemy *60 Alchemy *45 Wang Teng smiled widely. The number of attribute bubbles in this wave was not small. It was fortunate that he wasn't in a hurry to use his blank attributes to increase his alchemy. As the attribute bubbles merged into his body, many related memories emerged in his mind, increasing his knowledge of alchemy and making up for his experience. His alchemy skills smoothly advanced to the next level. Alchemist, 363,000, Master. At this moment, his alchemy skills had truly reached the master level. In just a short while, he had become a master alchemist from an advanced stage alchemist. If Master Chen knew about it, he would probably vomit blood in anger. That was also why Wang Ting dared to challenge the master alchemist when he was just an advanced stage alchemist. Although he was young, he had a bug on his side. You can hit me if you're not satisfied. Sneering, Wang Teng stepped forward, picked the furnace up, and threw it aside. He then took out his black meteorite furnace and prepared to make the medicine. With a thought in his mind, emerald-glazed flame erupted, wrapping the black meteorite furnace and raising the temperature inside the furnace room. He took out the ingredients that Dan Taixian had prepared, which started floating into the furnace under his spiritual powers control. Some turned into liquid, while others turned into powder. Outside the furnace room, Kui Heng, Chen Ruifan, and the others suddenly felt a scorching heat from Wang Teng's furnace room. There was a look of surprise on their faces. Why is the temperature so high? The material and the runes of the furnace room should be able to withstand the heat. Kui Heng muttered. Suddenly, his body shuddered and he exclaimed, "Is that flame made from the essence of the world?" Chen Ruifan naturally thought about this possibility, and there was a vivid expression on his face. Did that Wang Ting really get his hands on such a flame? At this time, many alchemists walked out of their furnace room and lambasted. Damn, what's going on? I was at a critical stage of making Dan. Now it's all ruined by the sudden rise in temperature. What? You too? That's right. Me too. What's going on? I don't know. Master Shu, Master Ji. As the head, Kui Heng naturally had to go up and explain, "Masters, please be patient. This is probably caused by an alchemist in Donghai. I didn't expect him to disturb everyone. Please excuse him." "Oh, who's able to disturb us when he's making Dan?" the two master alchemists asked curiously. Kui Heng wasn't sure how he should introduce Wang Ting. He gave a forced smile and said, "Why don't you wait for him to come out and take a look yourselves?" His words made the two master alchemists even more curious. But they didn't probe further. They decided to wait outside. This temperature doesn't feel like a normal flame," Master Shu couldn't help but say. "If I'm right, it should be a special flame." Master Ji touched his beard and said. He wasn't very young. Master Shu looked at Chen Ruifan, who was beside him, and asked, "Master Chen, you came out first. Do you know which Donghai master alchemist is making Dan inside?" Chen Ruifan's face was a little black, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. Hence, when he heard Master Zu's question, he didn't give him any good response. "I don't know." Master Shu was confused. He pouted and stopped asking. In the end, Chen Ruifan was the one who couldn't control himself and opened his mouth. The person inside said he can treat old Han. Oh. Master Shu and Master Ji were stunned. "Are you sure?" He said it. "I don't know." Chen Ruifan gave a look of disbelief. "Let's wait and see." Master Ji smiled and said in a nonchalant tone. Time flew. They had been waiting for half an hour. A strange scene appeared outside the furnace room. A group of people was standing outside the closed furnace room as if there was a stunning beauty inside. "It has ended," Master Ji suddenly said. "Oh." Master Shu was excited. Smiling, he said, "I smell a Dan fragrance. It looks like this master had succeeded." Wang Teng had made the primary blood recovery Dan and the purple jade spirit bone cream in a single try. A satisfied smile appeared at the edge of his lips. He kept his black meteorite furnace and opened the door of the furnace room. The next instant, he was stunned. Why were there so many people surrounding the room? Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. What were these people doing? Gathering outside a market? Master Shu, Master Ji, and many others were dumbfounded. They stared at Wang Ting's unbelievably young face for a long time as if trying to find some abnormality on it. They were in disbelief. Could this master be an old fellow who was good at retaining his youthful looks? They had heard that in the Xingwu continent, there was a way to maintain one's youthful appearance. There were even spiritual dans that could renew one's youth. Did he use such methods? If there was a chance, they wanted to ask if he was willing to make an exchange. They wanted to get dans to maintain their youths too. "What are y'all doing?" Wang Teng glanced around him. Seeing Kui Heng, he shot him the question. "When you were making Dan, the temperature went too high and affected everyone," Kui Heng explained. "Oh, I see. I'm sorry about that. I was being inconsiderate. Wang Teng understood and cupped his fists at everyone. It's all right. We were affected even though we were a distance away, so that means our alchemy mastery isn't good enough. You're not to be blamed. Master Ji chuckled. That's right, we are not skilled enough. Master Shu laughed too. He showed no intention of blaming Wang Teng. Chen Ruifan pouted. His face was black. It was inappropriate for the other master alchemists to say anything after hearing Master Shu and Master Ji. They decided to act generous and let it slide. That way, they could still gain the favor of these two masters. Wait, why do I find this master a little familiar? Master Shu suddenly got puzzled. Let me introduce him. Kui Heng secretly laughed. He went forward and said, this is Master Shu Hayu and Master Ji Xinshui. And this is Wang Teng, a student from my Huanghai Military Academy. But he's already a general stage martial warrior. General stage. Shu Hayu and Ji Xinshui were shocked. They immediately thought of something and cried in alarm, you're that Wang Teng. They knew Wang Teng, but they had never seen him in real life, so they didn't recognize him at first. If there's no other Wang Teng, I should be the one that you're thinking of. Wang Teng smiled and replied. What a promising young man. Ji Xinshui sized up Wang Teng and exclaimed. May I know what level your alchemy is at? Shu Hayu asked. Master level, Wang Teng said calmly. He didn't hide. Ji Xinshui and Shu Hayu gasped involuntarily. I didn't smell wrong. The Dan fragrance just now came from high-class dans. Only master-level alchemists can make high-class dans, Shu Hayu said. Kui Heng was stunned too. Wang Teng had indeed reached the master level. How did he practice? Mph. A cold snort came from the side. Then, a sarcastic voice was heard. Although he made the Dan, we don't know if it can heal old Han. It might just look good on the surface without any effects. Don't make a joke of yourself later. Shu Hayu and Ji Xinshui noticed something amiss. This Master Chen had some grudges against this young Master Wang. They glanced at each other but didn't say anything. They wanted to watch a good show. Chen Ruifans wasn't popular among them. They wanted to see if Master Wang could shut him up. Wang Teng didn't care about the dog barking at the side. He said to Dan Taishen, let's find old Han now. You succeeded? Dan Taishen asked. Yes. Wang Teng nodded. The two of them headed to old Han's house. Shu Hayu and Ji Xinshui looked at each other before hurrying after them. I want to see how capable you are. Chen Ruifan scoffed and followed them. Watch over this place. I'll go and take a look, Kui Heng said to the other alchemists around him before rushing over. After they left, the alchemists started chatting among themselves. Deep in the instructor dormitory, in a little wooden house. Wang Teng and Dan Taishen knocked on the door and walked in. You're here. Old Han's eyes lit up. Your spiritual Dan is here. Wang Teng lifted the 2 jade bottles in his hand and smiled at old Han. Quick, I still want to live. This body is frustrating me, old Han urged. Wang Teng smiled and passed him the 2 jade bottles. One for internal consumption and one for external usage. Give it a try yourself. Then, he walked out of the house with Dan Taishen. They waited outside for more than an hour before the door opened with a creak. Old Han walked out slowly. His back was still bent, but the color had returned to his face. He wasn't as weak as before, where he looked as if he was on the brink of death. Old Han, how do you feel? Wang Teng smiled and said. Ha ha ha, I can finally catch a breath, Old Han laughed and said. He healed him. Chen Ruifan muttered to himself. He was dumbstruck. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. Chapter 561. The leader of martial arts Old Han appeared in front of everyone. He had recovered from his injuries. Not only did Chen Ruifan couldn't believe it, even the 2 master alchemists, Ji Xinshui and Shu Hayu, felt like they were dreaming. Wang Ting actually healed him when the three of them weren't able to. This fellow was indeed exceptional. At this moment, they started to believe that he was a master alchemist. With his skills, he should be regarded as a master level. Kui Heng believed it too. He was embarrassed that he had tried to dissuade Wang Ting previously. All this while, he was just embarrassing himself. Wang Ting was already a master alchemist, and he might even be better than him. There was nothing for him to worry about. But it was a great thing that Wang Ting was still a student of the Huanghai Military Academy. With him, they had 2 master alchemists in their ranks. Wang Ting, thank you very much. Old Han put away his smile and said solemnly to Wang Ting. He really thought that his time was up, but Wang Ting had managed to yank him out of the gates of hell. He was indebted to him for saving his life. If you want to thank me, do it after I completely heal that injury of yours. It's just under control for now, Wang Ting said. 2 more years for me is good enough. Old Han didn't mind it and smiled. Wang Ting just laughed. Old Han probably had an idea that only a grandmaster could save him and felt that it would be nothing short of a fantasy for Wang Ting to reach that level in 2 years. He knew very well that even in the Xingwu continent, there were not many grandmaster alchemists, and they were all at least a century old. It was not easy for Wang Ting to even reach the master level at such a young age. He had an inkling that Wang Ting would climb the next level, but definitely not in 2 years. Chen Ruifan was too ashamed to stay any longer. He turned around to leave with his disciple. He had heard that Wang Ting wasn't unable to heal Old Han completely, but he at least managed to extend the old man's life by 2 years. Mind you, before this, none of the alchemists were able to do anything. In his situation, 5 days was the most Old Han could live. If he spoke now, he would be asking for humiliation. His face was already on the floor. There was no need to step on it anymore. Ji Xinshui and Xu Heyu didn't care when they saw Chen Ruifan leaving. They even felt a little happy seeing him embarrassed. They walked over and started chatting with Wang Ting. The guy had reached the master level at an incredibly young age. They would be idiots if they didn't befriend him. Wang Ting knew some methods they didn't know, so they could interact and improve together. The 2 of them came forward and called him Master Wang. They viewed him as someone at their level and were extremely enthusiastic. Oh right, Master Wang, were you using a divine fire just now? Ji Xinshui hesitated before asking. He couldn't control his curiosity anymore. Wang Ting was slightly astonished. Then, he nodded and said, that's right, it's called the Emerald Glazed Flame. He raised his hand, and a green flame appeared on his palm. It blossomed like a beautiful green flower, its intense heat spreading in an instant. With his current ability, he wasn't worried that others would snatch his things. Dan Taixian and Old Han were conversing at the side. They felt the scorching heat from the emerald glazed flame and walked over involuntarily. During the sea beast's riot, I sensed that you used a certain divine fire. So this was it, Old Han said in a thoughtful tone. He sized up the green flame on Wang Ting's palm curiously. I was just lucky enough to have it, Wang Ting said. We want your luck too. Ji Xinshui and Xu Heyu lamented in envy. It's rare enough to find a divine fire, much less capture it. Ji Xinshui shook his head. Xu Heyu nodded in agreement. Although they were envious, they were all master-level characters, so they were broad-minded and didn't lose their head. They talked a little longer. The 2 masters then invited Wang Ting to share his alchemy experience again when he was free before taking their leave. The next day, Wang Ting informed his family members before stepping on the military plane heading to capital Xia along with Dan Taixian. The sky was getting more and more dangerous, especially after the sea beast's riot. The entire nation had raised its vigilance. The military aircraft they were in was equipped with extremely powerful rune weapons. If they met any flying star beasts, they would be able to strike it down. Of course, not everyone had the right to sit in military aircraft. The military plane traveled at high speed and traversed half the nation's land in half an hour. At the moment, it was crossing a mountain. Screech! The cry of a bird was abruptly heard in the sky. The sound penetrated through clouds and rocks, surging towards them like a huge wave. The military plane vibrated and suddenly changed direction. The two people on board felt the commotion. Dan Taixian asked calmly, "What happened?" "Report, it's an ice feather vulture," the soldier in front said. "Strike it down," Dan Taixian ordered with a stern expression. Yes. In the sky, a vulture covered with snow-white feathers spread out its wings. It was 1/3 the length of the military plane, looking extremely majestic. Its beak was as sharp as a hook, and a cold glint escaped from its eyes. Wang Ting's spiritual power shot out from his forehead. It twirled in the air as he sensed the situation outside. 6-star. He sensed the level of this ice feather vulture, but there was no change in his expression. It was just a 6-star beast. They could kill it easily. However, the element of this ice feather vulture caught his attention. Ice element. His ice element was only at the 7-star soldier level. If there was a large number of ice element star beasts for him to collect attributes from, it would be easy for him to rise to the general stage. He wondered if there were many ice feather vultures. Wang Ting touched his chin and pondered on the thought. The ice feather vulture outside suddenly shuddered for no reason as it felt an evil intention enveloping it. A hint of curiosity flashed in its eyes. What happened? The strange feeling came and left quickly. It disappeared in the blink of an eye. The ice feather vulture's gaze turned cold again as it stared at the military plane in front. The military aircraft hovered in the air. The runes glowed brightly on the surface and congregated into a ray of golden light before discharging in a straight line. Boom! The ice feather vulture was given a shock. It tilted its body and threw a look of contempt their way. This is it. Boom, boom, boom. The next instant, multiple golden rays shot out one after another, piercing through its wings and body. The ice feather vulture cried in pain, plunging to the ground. It couldn't stand a fight in front of the military aircraft. The vulture gifted Wang Ting a few attribute bubbles. He swept them over with his spiritual power. Ice Force *50 Ice Force *65 Ice Force *48 Indeed. Wang Ting had a sudden thought. He opened his mouth and asked, "Can you open the cabin door?" The soldier in front looked at Dan Taixian, who nodded in approval. The cabin door at the back of the military aircraft opened slowly. Strong gusts of wind gushed into the aircraft. Fortunately, there were no other items inside, or they would have been blown away by the strong wind. The ice feather vulture that hadn't died flew over from afar under the control of an invisible force and entered the cabin. The cabin door then closed. Wang Ting walked over and looked at the ice feather vulture in deep thought. It was bound by his spiritual power, and its eyes were no longer cold. Only fear was left in them. "Why did you catch this ice feather vulture?" Dan Taixian asked. "My ice force is a little low in level, so the ice force nucleus of this vulture should be able to help me," Wang Ting said casually. "What's the level of your ice force now?" Dan Taixian was curious. Wang Ting's 5 basic elements were too outstanding, so she had neglected the ice element that he had displayed at the start. 7-star soldier level, Wang Ting replied. Dan Taixian, was this what a normal person would say? Others had to spend much time and effort to reach the 7-star soldier level, but Wang Ting said that it was too low. "What?" Wang Ting asked involuntarily when he noticed her strange expression. "Nothing." Dan Taixian coughed awkwardly. She continued, "If you want an ice force nucleus, you can go to Beijiang. There are many ice element star beasts in the snow mountains. This ice feather vulture probably came from there. I wonder what it's doing here." Beijiang. Wang Ting started pondering. He suddenly thought of something and asked, "I heard that there's a dimensional rift there. How's the current situation?" Isn't good." Dan Taixian shook her head with a serious expression. Wang Ting noticed that she didn't explain further, so he didn't ask. His gaze turned sharp as he invaded the ice feather vulture with his spiritual power. A force nucleus broke out from its body while the ice feather vulture died instantly. Wang Ting held onto the 6-star ice force nucleus and scanned it with his eyes. Ice Force *120 Advanced Stage Ice Talent *45 Ice Force *105 Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Wang Ting already had Advanced Stage Ice Talent, so this was the icing on the cake. His advanced stage ice talent increased slightly, as did his ice force. Ice force, 7085,000, 7-star. Wang Teng looked at the changes in his ice force and nodded slightly. It wasn't much, but there was an increase. Beijiang. He gazed in the northwest direction. It looked like he had to visit there soon. No other accidents happened for the rest of their journey. The two of them quickly reached a military airport in the suburban district of capital Xia. Lieutenant General Dan, Major General Wang, nice to meet you. The person who welcomed them was a middle-aged man dressed in a military uniform with 2 crimson stars on his shoulder. Lieutenant General Tang. Dan Taixian nodded at the other party. Then, she introduced him to Wang Teng. This is Lieutenant General Tang Qilu from the capital Xia military. Lieutenant General Tang, nice to meet you. Wang Teng greeted. You're indeed young and outstanding. Tang Qilu sized up Wang Teng and exclaimed. You're too polite. Wang Teng replied humbly. Let's go, the 3 commanders are waiting for you. Tang Qilu didn't say much and led the two of them onto a military pickup truck. They drove towards the military district. There was a soldier driving the car. Tang Qilu knew that it was Wang Teng's first time here, so he took special care of him and briefly introduced the situation of the capital Xia military. Wang Teng glanced around him as he listened to the introduction. Capital Xia army took up a large area of land, and all kinds of buildings and gunfights could be seen here, with many soldiers patrolling around. This place was heavily guarded. Too was Wang Ting had been to a few military districts, but this was his first time seeing a district of this size. As expected of the greatest military in the nation. The military truck passed through layers and layers of guards. Finally, they came to the center of the district and stopped in front of a large building. You can go in. I'll send you until here. Tang Qilu smiled slightly and turned to leave. The two of them sent Lieutenant General Tang off with their gazes. Let's go. Dan Taixian was familiar with this place. She brought Wang Ting into the large building inside. There were soldiers on duty leading the way. They took the lift and went to the top floor of this huge building. Wang Ting felt emotional. It wasn't easy to come to this place. Without Tang Qilu leading them at the start, it would be a few times more troublesome for them to get in. The military knew their background, so it was easier for them. If it were others, they wouldn't have been permitted access without undergoing layers of inspection. The 3 commanders are inside. This way please, a soldier's voice pulled Wang Ting back to reality. A huge door had appeared in front of him. The soldier left without stopping. Dan Taixian wanted to knock, but an old voice came out from the room. Come in. Dan Taixian wasn't surprised. Based on the cultivation levels of the 3 people inside, they would have noticed them when they arrived at the bottom of the building. She pushed the door and entered. Wang Ting looked inside. The figure of 3 elders appeared. The 3 great commanders. No, these 3 commanders had different auras, but all of them had a formidable force of presence lurking around their bodies. Wang Ting activated his spiritual sight and almost got blinded. The light given off by the 3 elders was exceptionally glaring. Although it wasn't as intense as the windstorm giant ape, they must have reached the upper levels of the general stage. While Wang Ting was sizing up the 3 elders, they were looking at him too. They were no strangers to Wang Teng, but this was their first time seeing him in real life. Despite looking him up and down, they couldn't see through him. They were astounded. Come in. They exchanged glances with one another before a skinny and small elder opened his mouth. Dan Taixian and Wang Ting walked into the main hall. Wang Ting. A voice suddenly came from the side. Wang Ting was shocked as he glanced sideways. A tall and lofty man with graying hair was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window not far away from the 3 commanders. He was facing them with his back with his hands behind him. How is this possible? Wang Ting was shocked. He didn't notice the presence of another person in this room. Leader of martial arts. Dan Taixian lost her composure when she saw this person. At first, she thought they were here to see the 3 great commanders first before going to the imperial palace to visit the leader. Who knew that he would appear here? He came to see Wang Ting personally. Dan Taixian was in disbelief. She bowed slightly to greet the leader. This person was the most powerful martial warrior in the entire nation. Even in the world, his ability was top tier. Without him, their country wouldn't be able to remain so peaceful and harmonious. He was the pillar supporting the entire nation. Wang Ting immediately understood who this person was when he saw this scene. Astonishment flashed past his eyes. "Do you know why I came to look for you?" The leader turned and smiled as he gazed at Wang Ting. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP." Chapter 562 Alien. "I don't know." Wang Ting replied directly. He wasn't afraid of the guy. Sponsored content. After the initial astonishment, he had already regained his composure. The leader of martial arts was worth respecting, but there was no need to be fearful of him. In the past, Wang Ting might not have been so open-minded. But now, he was at the general stage and was confident that he would be on par with the three great commanders or the leader soon. Hence, his fear towards them wasn't that great. This was the temperament of a formidable warrior. The leader didn't mind his tone. Instead, he gave a smile of approval and said, "Let's go, I'll bring you somewhere." He walked out of the door. The three great commanders glanced at one another and followed him out of the room. "Can you finish what you have to say at once? Stop beating around the bush." Wang Ting rolled his eyes and complained in his heart. They took the elevator down. This was a different elevator from the one Wang Ting took just now. Very soon, the elevator stopped. The door opened, and a bright underground space appeared in front. There was a long corridor. The leader strode ahead. Many figures wearing long white gowns were shuttling back and forth hurriedly. Seeing the leader and the three great commanders, they would bow and greet them. They only straightened their backs after they walked far away. Wang Ting looked at the white gowns and frowned. F***K, are they going to cut him up for research? Should he run or not? The problem was, he couldn't beat the leader yet. Wang Ting was in a dilemma. He followed the leader until they reached a huge room that looked like a laboratory in a science fiction movie. The door of the room was extremely thick and sturdy. Through the window, he noticed that the staff inside were all covered up. Their white working uniform was like a spacesuit. The view from the window was limited. Besides the staff, he could only see some high-technology devices. He couldn't see anything else. "Use your force to cover yourself as protection," the leader opened his mouth and said. Then, he opened the door. There was a sterilization scanning area behind the door. Everyone was scanned thoroughly to sterilize their bodies before they could pass through another door to enter the room. Wang Ting was shocked. Where was this? Why did they have to be so strict when entering? He hesitated for a moment and decided to follow the leader. Covering himself with force, he entered the room behind the man. He couldn't run away. Since he had no chance of resisting, why not see what they wanted to do? These people were all general stage formidable warriors. Hence, there was no need to cover themselves up tightly with the protective suit. The instant Wang Ting entered, he scanned the surroundings. Soon, his gaze was fixed on a huge enclosed cabin. Bewilderment appeared in his eyes. There was a human-shaped creature covered with scales locked up in the enclosed cabin. It was approximately 3 meters tall, and even its face had scales on it. There was a horn in its head giving off a gold glint. It looked a little hideous because of it. What is that? Wang Ting was dumbfounded. He also noticed that the limbs of this creature were chained up by rune chains. A huge thick metal chain tied up its body, while a few more chains penetrated its body to lock it up entirely. At the same time, many tubes were stabbed into the creature. They seemed to be sucking something from its body. It's still alive. Wang Ting shuddered at this scene. As expected, this was a laboratory researching living creatures. How frightening. But they were kind enough not to cut it up. Suddenly, Wang Ting's eyes lit up. As the tube sucked up something from the creature's body, 2 attribute bubbles suddenly dropped out. Wang Ting glanced at the leader and the others silently. If he used his spiritual power to sweep the attribute bubbles over, he would definitely get noticed. But he couldn't touch it without using his spiritual power either. What should he do? Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Should he pick them up? Wang Ting hesitated. If he was at another place with other people around him, he would do it. Yet, this was an important research facility, and the leader of martial arts and the 3 great commanders were beside him. If he used his spiritual power recklessly, he would cause huge trouble. Wang Ting contemplated and decided to give up. He would pick them up when he had the chance. Thereafter, he activated his spiritual sight and looked at the creature. Wang Ting was given another shock. He saw a special force color from within the creature. It was different from any other force he had ever seen. What force is this? Wang Ting's heart was itching. His curiosity towards this scaled creature had increased to an all-time high. He looked at the 2 attribute bubbles and wished that he could pick them up instantly. This creature was neither a star beast nor a dark apparition. If not, it wouldn't have this force. He looked at the leader of martial arts uncontrollably. They probably brought him here to see this creature. As expected, the leader exchanged a few words with the person in charge of this laboratory. Then, he turned and said to Wang Ting, "Do you know what this is?" "I don't know." Wang Ting shook his head and replied. "It's an alien." The leader paused for a moment before saying slowly, "Alien?" Wang Ting was dumbstruck. He didn't expect this creature to come from outer space. "The world is bigger than we think," the leader exclaimed. Wang Ting remained silent. Xingwu continent, Darkland, the outer space. He felt that the more he knew, the more he couldn't understand this world. He had found the ancient god's corpse in the dimensional rift and always felt that it belonged to another world. However, today, someone told him that there were powerful presences in their world too. How did this creature? Wang Ting paused. He didn't know if he should ask. "You want to know how we caught it and brought it to the laboratory?" The leader smiled. "Yes." Wang Ting nodded. About 18 years ago, a spaceship from outer space fell onto a certain island in the ocean. At that time, something went wrong with the spaceship, so it caused a huge commotion when it crashed onto land. All the countries sent people out to search for it. They found it and caught the badly injured creatures in the spaceship. After a round of debate, some big countries gained ownership of these creatures. Our country is one of them, the leader explained briefly. Wang Ting was surprised. He looked at the leader's expression and asked, "So we brought it back for research?" "Cough, we didn't plan to research at first, but these creatures don't want to cooperate. They were powerful too, so if they weren't heavily injured at that time, they might have caused disasters on Earth." The leader coughed awkwardly as he replied. Wang Ting glanced at him silently. "Was that the truth? Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP." Chapter 563 Constellation Force. The leader remained calm without a change in his expression. Wang Ting shrugged. No matter what the answer was, they had already started the research. What could he do? Were they going to release the creature and say, "This is all a misunderstanding. Let's be good friends in the future"? Bullshit. Wang Ting looked at the creature in front. He remembered something and asked, "Did you say it's very powerful?" "Yes, more powerful than any human martial warriors." The leader was exceptionally serious. Wang Ting was shocked. An idea flashed into his mind, and he blurted out his thoughts. "So the countries on Earth want to decipher a path to become stronger from it." The leader looked at him in admiration. "You're indeed smart." "That's right. We want to find the secret to becoming stronger from it. We have only reached the general stage. If we don't achieve a breakthrough, we will be at a disadvantage against star beasts, dark apparitions, and unknown aliens." "What have the other countries found out?" Wang Ting asked again. "I don't know." The leader shook his head. "This is why I brought you here. I don't think you brought me here just to see this alien, right?" Wang Ting asked with bright eyes. "There will be a global exchange event soon. It will be held on Mount Saint, and only youths aged 25 and below will participate in this event. I want you to represent our country for the event, the leader said directly, a global exchange event. Wang Teng was puzzled. He had never heard of this event. It has been held many times, but normal people don't know about it. Do you want me to find out what the other countries have discovered? Wang Teng asked. That is one reason. I also hope that you can suppress the younger generations of the other nations to show the strength of our country. The leader said, our performance has always been average. But with the current changes in the world and the restless star beasts and dark apparitions, we need to display more power to have more initiative. Wang Ting understood. He was there to be a coolie. They called him over from Donghai and went an entire round to tell him this. He had reached the brigadier general stage and was close to becoming a low-tier general. He had probably surpassed all the younger generation talents in the world. What benefits will I get if I agree? Wang Teng smiled and asked. He didn't agree immediately. Indeed, you won't commit yourself until you get what you want. The leader smiled and asked, what do you want? Wang Ting hesitated before saying, I took many treasures from the Darkland and want to turn them into cash. Can you help me settle this? You took treasures from the Darkland. The leader's expression turned weird. He was a little surprised. How much? A few trillions, Wang Ting said shyly. Fut. The three commanders who had been silent all this while widened their eyes in surprise and looked at Wang Teng as if he were a monster. The leader choked too. He kept quiet for some time before he said, I'll ask someone to take care of them. Just pass them to me later. Wang Teng nodded. Can I observe this alien? Wang Teng, we have gathered the top talents in the nation, but no one managed to find anything. Don't waste your time, the scrawny commander couldn't help but open his mouth. I'll just take a look, Wang Teng sniggered. Sure. I'll ask someone to open the cabin, the leader said. No need, I'll use my spiritual power, Wang Teng said. The leader nodded his head. It was recorded in his data that he was a divine spirit master. Hence, he wasn't surprised. Wang Teng noticed that the two attribute bubbles were already disappearing, so he immediately sent his spiritual power out. He picked it up. Constellation Force, Fire, *10 Constellation Force, Fire, *12 this is? Wang Teng was flabbergasted. Constellation Force. And it was a fire element constellation force. As the constellation force merged into his body, Wang Ting felt a certain change. He pulled out his attributes panel and looked at his force column. There was a new constellation force, Fire, entry 22. This constellation force was different from his other fire force. It seemed strangely more powerful. However, this wasn't the time to look into it. He pretended to use his spiritual power to scan the alien a few times before retracting it. Suddenly, the alien opened its eyes. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. % and I yuan *hash. It struggled frantically and made strange and inaudible sounds with its throat. Quick, quick. Give it a huge jab of anesthetic. Don't let it struggle, the person in charge who was talking to the leader just now shouted. The staff around them started to get busy. After a series of operations, the anesthetic was injected into the alien through one of the tubes. The alien gave a frustrated and angry roar. Its eyes popped out, and it went back to sleep again. The leader and the others seemed used to this scene. They shook their heads helplessly. Wang Teng glanced at the leader and then at the alien. Suddenly, he found this fellow a little pitiful. It had been locked up for 18 years and was treated as an object of study. Its life was dark. Did you discover anything? The leader asked. Its force seems powerful. Wang Teng thought for a moment. He didn't want to say anything at first, but he figured it wasn't good, so he gave an ambiguous answer in the end. That is the direction of our research. Unfortunately, we haven't found a way to alter our force, the leader said. You think that this force is a mutation of our force? Wang Teng read between the lines. High possible, the leader said. Wang Teng nodded in deep thought. All right, you have taken a look at it. Do you have any other requests? The leader asked. That's all. I agree to go for the global event. Wang Teng didn't make any requests and agreed to the leader's suggestion. Let's leave. The leader walked out of the laboratory. Wang Teng threw a sad look at the alien in the cabin. He wished that he could gain more attributes bubbles from it, but this wasn't a place he could enter whenever he wanted. He didn't make this request just now because it was too sudden, and he was asking for too much. After they came up, the three great commanders arranged Wang Teng and Dan Taixuan's lodging and let them rest. 3 days later, Wang Teng would board the military aircraft heading to Mount Saint. As they watched him leave, the lofty commander asked curiously, "Why didn't you ask him about the rock body? He seemed to have found the path forward. We will know what we need to know. He will tell us when he feels he can say it," the leader smiled and replied. The three commanders were silent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Please report us if you find any errors so we can fix it ASAP. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.